The day humans revealed their true power is etched into the memory of every species in the galaxy. It begins in the Galactic Council Chamber, a grand amphitheater floating in the void of space, where Earth's ambassador Richard Griffin stands before the assembled alien races. Griffin's hand hovers over a small device concealed within his suit. The chamber buzzes with tension as the council prepares to vote on the forced resettlement of human colonies. 12 major spacefaring species, each convinced of their superiority over the seemingly primitive humans, lean forward in anticipation. Xena, the Draconis ambassador, rises to speak. Her scales shimmer under the chamber's harsh lights as she begins to outline the case for limiting humanity's expansion. Griffin's eyes narrow, his fingers tightening around the hidden device. In an instant, chaos erupts. Griffin activates the device, and a wave of energy pulses through the chamber. Alien technologie faillant mas. Displays flicker and die. Translators fall silent. The chamber's anti-gravity systems falter, sending alien representatives floating helplessly in their seats. Panic spreads like wildfire. Alien guards rush towards Griffin, their powered armor whining and sputtering. They reach for weapons that no longer function. Human security personnel, their equipment specially shielded, move swiftly to form a protective barrier around their ambassador. Griffin stands tall, a triumphant smile playing across his lips. He activates a personal shield, the energy field shimmering around him. Gasps echo through the chamber as the aliens realize the humans possess technology far beyond what they had imagined. Xena, now drifting near the ceiling, her scales bristling with a mixture of fear and fury, demands, "What is the meaning of this, Griffin? How dare you attack the council?" Griffin's voice carries clearly through the chamber, amplified by technology the aliens can no longer comprehend. "This is not an attack, Ambassador Xena. This is a demonstration." He gestures broadly, encompassing the entire chamber. "For years, you've seen us as weak, as prey to be controlled and culled at your whim. You've underestimated us, dismissed us, and now you sought to cage us. That ends today." Reports flood in from across the galaxy. Human ships neutralize alien fleets with ease, using the same technology Griffin has unleashed in the council chamber. Operation Prometheus, Earth's long-planned strike, unfolds with terrifying efficiency. Griffin produces a datapad, untouched by the electromagnetic pulse that has crippled alien tech. "I present to you Earth's terms for continued participation in galactic affairs. Non-negotiable, I'm afraid." The alien representatives, once so confident in their power, now stare at Griffin with a mix of disbelief and growing comprehension. The humans, dismissed as a non-threat, have executed a strategy years in the making. Their perceived weakness was a carefully crafted deception, hiding capabilities that now threaten to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Griffin's ultimatum rings through the silent chamber. "Accept our terms, or face a complete technological shutdown across all your territories." The choice, esteemed members of the council, is yours. As the aliens grapple with this new reality, one thing becomes abundantly clear. The era of human subjugation is over. A new power has risen, and the galaxy will never be the same. As Griffin's ultimatum echoed through the chamber, the alien representatives exchanged panicked glances, their once proud demeanors crumbling in the face of humanity's shocking revelation. The ambassador's finger hovered over his datapad, ready to unleash the full extent of Earth's power across the galaxy. Suddenly, the chamber erupted into further chaos. The anti-gravity systems, already faltering, gave out completely. Alien delegates flailed helplessly in the zero-gravity environment, their robes and tentacles tangling as they drifted aimlessly. Human security personnel, tethered to magnetic boots, moved with practiced ease through the mayhem. Griffin's lips curled into a smile as he activated a holographic display. The chamber fell silent as a three-dimensional map of the galaxy materialized before them, dotted with countless glowing points of light. "Allow me to illuminate our position further," Griffin said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "These points represent human military assets strategically placed throughout your territories." The alien representatives gasped as they recognized the locations, key strategic points, resource-rich systems, and vital trade routes. Humanity's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. Xena, still drifting near the ceiling, her scales now pale with shock, sputtered, "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected." "Your sensors, Ambassador," Griffin interrupted, "like much of your technology, are woefully inadequate compared to ours. These outposts have remained hidden in plain sight, waiting for this very moment." As if on cue, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The holographic display updated in real time, showing the activation of human bases on countless worlds. Swarms of autonomous drones poured forth from hidden hangars, their EMP weapons neutralizing alien defenses with ruthless efficiency. Entire star systems winked out of communication as the drones severed subspace relays and disabled planetary shields. The aliens watched in horror as their vast, interconnected empire crumbled into isolated pockets in a matter of minutes. A new hologram flickered to life beside Griffin. The stern visage of Admiral Marcus Steele, architect of Operation Prometheus, filled the chamber. His weathered face bore the scars of countless battles, his eyes sharp with the keen intelligence that had outmaneuvered the entire galaxy. "Esteemed members of the Council," Steele's gravelly voice resonated through the chamber, "I am Admiral Marcus Steele of the Earth Defense Force. For decades, we have studied your weaknesses, analyzed your strategies, and prepared for this day. While you dismissed us as primitive, we built an army right under your noses." Outside the council chambers, the true might of humanity revealed itself. Across the galaxy, massive warships emerged from their hiding places. Asteroids split open, revealing state-of-the-art battlecruisers. Debris fields coalesced into sleek destroyers. The human fleet, led by the imposing HSS Titan, took up positions around key alien worlds and installations. On Earth, alarms blared through the Global Defense Initiative headquarters. General Elena Rodriguez strode purposefully through the command center, barking orders as she initiated Phase 2 of Operation Prometheus. "Activate all sleeper agents," she commanded. "It's time to show these aliens what humans are truly capable of." Across 100 worlds, humans who had spent years masquerading as various alien species sprang into action. These deep-cover operatives, their bodies altered down to the genetic level, began systematically sabotaging critical infrastructure and transmitting vital intelligence back to Earth. As news of humanity's true power spread, the galaxy's reaction was swift and varied. On some worlds, panic gripped the population. Riots broke out in the streets of alien capitals as citizens feared imminent human reprisal. On others, particularly those that had suffered under the heel of the dominant species, there were cautious celebrations. The long-established order of the galaxy was crumbling, and no one knew what would rise in its place. On the Draconis homeworld, alarms blared through the obsidian spires of the Imperial Palace. Chancellor Kralfax, supreme leader of the Draconis Imperium, convened an emergency session of his war council. The massive Draconis leader's tail lashed furiously as he addressed his generals. "How dare these mammals challenge us?" Kralfax roared, his claws leaving deep gouges in the war table. "We are the Draconis. We have ruled this galaxy since before their ancestors crawled from the primordial ooze of their pitiful world." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed to slits as he made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Activate the World Render," he hissed. "Let us remind these humans of their true place in the cosmic order." Deep beneath the surface of the Draconis homeworld, in a chamber known only to a select few, ancient machinery groaned to life. The World Render, a weapon of unimaginable power, began to charge. Back in the council chamber, Griffin prepared to present Earth's formal demands to the subdued alien representatives. The future of humanity, and indeed the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. But before he could speak, a priority communication from Admiral Steele flashed on his datapad. Griffin's eyes widened as he read the message. The Draconis were preparing a counterattack of devastating proportions. The conflict was about to escalate beyond anyone's control, and the next few moments would determine the fate of entire civilizations. Griffin's eyes darted across the datapad, his expression hardening as he absorbed the urgent message from Admiral Steele. The Draconis were preparing a counterattack of unprecedented scale. He looked up, scanning the chamber of floating alien dignitaries, aware that the next moments would shape the course of galactic history. "Evacuate now," he commanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence. The human security team sprang into action, their magnetic boots allowing them to navigate the zero-gravity environment with practiced efficiency. They moved swiftly to secure Griffin and other key human personnel, their specially shielded equipment humming with power. As the evacuation began, the alien representatives watched in a mixture of awe and trepidation. Their once proud demeanors had crumbled, replaced by expressions of fear and uncertainty as they witnessed the humans' coordinated response. "What's happening, Griffin?" Xena called out, her scales rippling with anxiety as she drifted near the ceiling. "What have you detected?" Griffin paused, turning to face the assembled aliens. "The Draconis have made their choice," he stated grimly. "They've activated a weapon that threatens not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. We're taking action to protect ourselves, and by extension, all of you." Before any of the aliens could respond, Griffin and his team were gone, leaving the chamber in a state of confused panic. Aboard the HSS Titan, Admiral Marcus Steele's weathered face was illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. The ship's sensors had detected unusual activity around the Draconis home star. "Magnify Sector 7 Alpha," Steele ordered, his eyes narrowing as he studied the image. The hologram zoomed in, revealing visible disturbances in the star's photosphere. Energy patterns fluctuated erratically, defying known stellar behavior. "Sir," a young officer reported, her voice tense, "we're detecting massive energy draws from the Draconis star. It appears to be artificial in nature." Steele's eyes hardened. "They've activated the stellar siphon," he muttered. Raising his voice, he addressed the bridge crew. "All ships, defensive formation Omega. Protect our key systems at all costs." As the human fleet repositioned, forming a protective barrier around vital human-controlled worlds, Steele input a series of complex commands into his console. Throughout human-controlled space, hidden defense platforms shimmered into existence, their stealth fields deactivating as they prepared for combat. On Earth, alarms blared through the Global Defense Initiative headquarters. General Elena Rodriguez strode purposefully into the command center, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Status report," she demanded, her eyes scanning the array of screens before her. "The Draconis have activated their superweapon, ma'am," an analyst reported. "Admiral Steele has initiated defensive protocols." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Then it's time. Initiate Project Aegis." Across the planet, massive energy generators roared to life. In the upper atmosphere, a shimmering barrier began to form, spreading rapidly to encapsulate the entire globe. Earth's last line of defense was now active. As the human forces prepared for the Draconis onslaught, the other galactic powers scrambled to protect their own interests. The Arcturian collective cybernetic hives buzzed with activity as they worked to evolve their systems beyond the reach of human EMP weapons. Meanwhile, the graceful ships of the Zephyrian Empire streaked across the stars, evacuating their most vital worlds to hidden sanctuary planets. Amid the chaos, Dr. Xander Voss hunched over his workstation in a secure human research facility. His eyes widened as he reviewed the latest data from captured Draconis technology. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the analysis again. But the results were clear. He had discovered a critical weakness in Draconis biology, one that could potentially neutralize their threat without full-scale war. Voss's fingers flew across his keyboard as he compiled his findings into an urgent report. Within moments, the information was en route to both Ambassador Griffin and Admiral Steele. On the bridge of the HSS Titan, Steele received Voss's report. He read it quickly, his brow furrowing as he considered the implications. "This could change everything," he said to himself. Looking up, he addressed his communications officer. "Get me Commander Jack Harper. We have a mission for him." As Steele began preparations for a high-risk infiltration of the Draconis homeworld, the effects of the stellar siphon rippled across nearby systems. Gravitational anomalies disrupted established space lanes, forcing ships to alter their courses. Intense bursts of radiation interfered with communication networks, leaving entire sectors isolated and vulnerable. The galactic community, once fractured by species rivalries and political maneuvering, began to realize the true scope of the threat. The Draconis weapon endangered not just humanity, but the stability of their entire region of space. In a secure briefing room aboard the HSS Titan, Commander Jack Harper stood at attention as Admiral Steele outlined the mission. "This is a volunteer operation, Commander," Steele said gravely. "Your team will infiltrate the Draconis homeworld and disable the stellar siphon. The fate of the galactic realm may well rest on your success." Harper nodded, his expression resolute. "We'll get it done, sir." As Harper left to assemble his team and begin preparations, Steele turned his attention back to the tactical displays. The human fleet stood ready, their advanced technology a stark contrast to the chaos engulfing the alien forces. The next few hours would determine the course of galactic history. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive and weak, now stood as a last line of defense against a threat that endangered all sapient life. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the cosmic order forever. Admiral Steele's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display, his mind racing through potential scenarios. The Draconis threat loomed large, but a new opportunity had presented itself. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Commander Jack Harper," he ordered. "We have a mission for him." Within minutes, Commander Harper stood at attention in the briefing room of the HSS Titan. Admiral Steele wasted no time with pleasantries. "Commander, we're initiating a high-risk infiltration of the Draconis homeworld," Steele explained, his voice grave. "Your team will be tasked with disabling the stellar siphon. The fate of humanity and all alien species may well rest on your success." Harper nodded, his expression resolute. "We'll get it done, sir." As Harper left to assemble his team, activity aboard the Titan reached a fever pitch. The prototype stealth ship Shadow Wraith was prepped for launch, its sleek hull gleaming under the hangar lights. 5 elite operatives, each handpicked for their unique skills, boarded the vessel. Navigator Sarah Carter, the lone woman on the team, settled into her seat at the helm. Her fingers danced across the controls, running last-minute system checks. "Cloaking systems online," she reported. "EMP shielding at maximum capacity." Harper strapped himself in, his voice steady as he addressed his team. "You all know the stakes. We're the tip of the spear, the first strike against the Draconis superweapon. Failure is not an option." As the Shadow Wraith detached from the Titan and slipped into the void of space, Admiral Steele set the next phase of his plan into motion. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, initiate Operation Firestorm," he commanded. "Hit and run attacks on all known Draconis outposts. Keep them off balance and draw their attention away from the homeworld." Across the galaxy, human warships jumped into action. They appeared near Draconis outposts, unleashed devastating barges, and vanished before the enemy could mount an effective response. The cosmos lit up with the flash of energy weapons and the glow of burning installations. On Earth, Dr. Xander Voss hunched over his workstation, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing complex molecular structures and simulations of Draconis physiology. "We're close," he muttered to his team of bleary-eyed scientists. "The agent is nearly stable. Just a few more tweaks to the protein structure." As Voss worked tirelessly to weaponize his discovery, the effects of the stellar siphon grew more pronounced. In a system near the Draconis homeworld, a red giant star pulsed erratically, its outer layers shuddering as if in pain. Bursts of stellar material erupted from its surface, engulfing two inner planets in waves of superheated plasma. On the lunar base Alpha, Ambassador Richard Griffin paced in his makeshift command center. Holographic projections of various alien dignitaries flickered around him, their faces a mix of fear and drive. "The Draconis threat affects us all," Griffin argued, his voice firm. "We must stand together or fall separately. Earth offers its full military and scientific might to this coalition. Who stands with us?" One by one, the alien representatives voiced their support. The Arcturian Collective's avatar, a shimmering cloud of data points, pulsed as it spoke. "We offer our AI systems and quantum computers to bolster your defenses," the Arcturian representative stated. "Together, we can create shields capable of withstanding even the stellar siphon's fury." As diplomatic alliances formed and battles raged across the stars, the Shadow Wraith approached the Draconis homeworld. The ship bucked and shuddered as it entered a maelstrom of gravitational eddies and radiation storms. Navigator Carter's hands flew across her console, making split-second adjustments. "This is insane," she muttered, sweat beading on her forehead. "The siphons turned this entire region into a death trap." Harper leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. "Can you get us through, Carter?" She nodded, her lips pursed. "I can do it, but it won't be a smooth ride." As the Shadow Wraith plunged deeper into the chaotic space surrounding the Draconis homeworld, the planet itself came into view. A network of orbital platforms encircled the world, their weapons primed and ready. "Planetary Defense Grid," Harper's tactical officer reported. "Heavy coverage. They could vaporize a small moon with that kind of firepower." Harper's mind raced, formulating a plan. "We'll use the gravitational distortions as cover. Carter, plot a course through the densest areas of turbulence. It'll be rough, but it should mask our approach." As the stealth ship wove its way through the treacherous space around the Draconis homeworld, the surface of the planet erupted in chaos. Flashes of weapons fire and explosions lit up the night side of the world, visible even from orbit. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're picking up Draconis transmissions. It looks like some kind of internal conflict. A group led by someone named Zexlor is attempting to seize control of the siphon facility." Harper's eyes narrowed as he processed this new information. The chaos on the surface could provide the perfect cover for their infiltration, but it also added an element of unpredictability to an already dangerous mission. Before he could fully consider their options, alarms blared throughout the Shadow Wraith. The tactical officer's voice was tense as he reported, "Massive energy spike detected on the planet's surface. The siphon, it's powering up to full capacity." Harper's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. Time was running out, and the hope of the universe hung in the balance. He had to make a decision, and fast. The original plan to disable the siphon still stood, but the possibility of an alliance with Zexlor's rebel faction could dramatically increase their chances of success. As the Shadow Wraith hurtled towards the turbulent atmosphere of the Draconis homeworld, Harper weighed his options. Knowing that his next command would shape the course of the mission and potentially the future of the entire galaxy. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "We stick to the plan," Harper announced, his voice firm. "Carter, take us in. Everyone else, gear up. We're going in hot." The Shadow Wraith plunged through the turbulent atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the Draconis defense grid. The ship bucked and shuddered as Carter navigated through swirling vortexes of gravitational distortion. "Hold on," Carter called out as she executed a series of evasive maneuvers. The ship narrowly avoided a massive energy discharge from the surface, the afterglow briefly illuminating the cockpit. As they descended, the team witnessed the chaos of the Draconis civil conflict firsthand. The night sky was ablaze with energy weapon discharges and explosions, casting an eerie, flickering light over the alien landscape. "This is our cover," Harper said, pointing to a holographic display of the surface. "We'll use the rebel attack as a distraction. Carter, set us down here, 2 clicks from the siphon control facility." The Shadow Wraith touched down in a secluded ravine, its landing strut sinking into the alien soil. Harper's team quickly disembarked, their boots hitting the ground with soft thuds. "Crews, take point," Harper ordered. "Patel, you're on tech. O'Neill, we'll need your demolitions expertise to breach the facility. Carter, you're our eyes and ears. Keep us informed of any changes in the battle above." As they moved out, the ground trembled beneath their feet. In the distance, massive structures loomed, their architecture alien and imposing. The air was thick with the acrid smell of weapons discharge and burning materials. "Sir," Carter's voice crackled over the comm, "I'm picking up increased chatter on Draconis frequencies. Looks like the rebel faction is making a push for key military installations." Harper nodded, his expression grim. "Good. The more chaos, the better our chances." They advanced through the alien terrain, using the cover of scattered debris and twisted metal to avoid detection. As they neared the siphon control facility, the true scale of the structure became apparent. It towered above them, a massive edifice of gleaming metal and pulsing energy conduits. "That's our target," Harper said, pointing to a heavily fortified entrance. "O'Neill, you're up." Sergeant Ryan O'Neill moved forward, his hands steady as he placed a series of compact explosive charges on the reinforced door. "Fire in the hole," he whispered, triggering the detonator. The explosion was surprisingly quiet, a testament to O'Neill's skill. The door crumpled inward, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Move," Harper urged, and the team surged forward into the facility. They encountered resistance almost immediately. A squad of Draconis guards, their scaled skin glistening under the harsh interior lights, opened fire with energy weapons. Cruz returned fire, his advanced human rifle cutting through the alien armor with precision. "Patel, we need access to their systems," Harper called out as he took cover behind a twisted piece of machinery. Dr. Aisha Patel nodded, her fingers flying over her portable terminal. "Working on it. Sir, their encryption is complex, but I'm making progress." As they fought their way deeper into the facility, alarms blared, and the resistance intensified. O'Neill's demolitions expertise proved invaluable, creating breaches in walls and generating distractions that allowed the team to advance. "Sir," Carter's voice came over the comm, "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the core of the facility. Whatever they're planning, it's happening now." Harper gritted his teeth. "Double time, people. We need to reach that control room." They pushed forward, their progress marked by a trail of disabled Draconis soldiers and destroyed security measures. As they approached a massive set of doors, likely leading to the main control room, disaster struck. A group of elite Draconis guards ambushed them from a side corridor. Energy bolts filled the air, and Sergeant O'Neill cried out in pain as he was hit squarely in the chest. "Ryan!" Cruz shouted, dragging the wounded soldier to cover. Harper made a split-second decision. "Cruz, stay with O'Neill. Patel, Carter, with me. We push to the control room now." As they prepared to make their final assault on the control room, A new voice called out from behind them. "Wait, we can help you." Harper spun around, weapon at the ready, to see a group of Draconis approaching with hands raised. At their head was a female Draconis, her scales a shade lighter than the others. "I am Chief Researcher Vexera," she said, her alien features set in a determined expression. "We oppose the Siphon Project. Let us help you disable it before it's too late." Harper's mind raced. The offer of help could be invaluable, but trusting a Draconis at this critical moment was a massive risk. The facility shuttered around them, and warning klaxons intensified. "Sir," Patel said urgently, "sensors indicate they're initiating the final phase. A localized singularity is forming in the core." Harper looked from Vexera to the control room doors, then back to his team. Time was running out, and he had to make a decision that could determine the fate of not just this mission, but potentially the entire galaxy. Galaxy. Harper's gaze swept over his team, then locked onto Vexera's alien features. In that split second, he made his choice. "All right," he said, his voice taut with tension. "We'll work together, but one wrong move, and you're done. Clear?" Vexera nodded, her scaled head dipping in acknowledgement. "Understood, Commander. We share the same goal now." Harper turned to his team. "Patel, you and Vexera focus on disabling the siphon's controls. Cruz, you're with me. We'll handle any resistance." As they moved towards the control room, the facility shuddered violently. Loose equipment crashed to the floor, then inexplicably began to float. "Gravitational anomalies," Vexera explained, her clawed hands gripping a console for stability. "The singularity is forming." They pushed forward, Vexera's knowledge proving invaluable as she guided them through a maze of corridors and security checkpoints. Her access codes and understanding of Draconis systems allowed them to bypass obstacles that would have taken precious minutes to overcome. In the control room, Patel and Vexera immediately set to work, their fingers flying over alien interfaces. Harper and Cruz took up defensive positions, weapons at the ready. "Multiple hostiles approaching," Cruz warned, his eyes on a security feed. Harper nodded grimly. "Hold them off. We need to buy time." As if on cue, the facility rocked with a massive explosion. The security feed showed a chaotic scene outside. Human and Draconis ships engaged in a furious battle, disabled vessels spiraling out of control. "Sir," Carter's voice crackled over the comm, "Admiral Steele's fleet has entered the system. They're engaging Draconis forces, but the disabled ships are being pulled towards us by the Singularity's gravity." Harper cursed under his breath. "Can you get us out of here, Carter?" "Negative. Sir, our exit is blocked by debris. But I have an idea. I can use the shadow ray to deflect some of the incoming wreckage. It'll buy you time, but it'll compromise our position." Another violent tremor shook the facility. Equipment crashed around them as gravity fluctuated wildly. "Do it, Carter," Harper ordered. "We need that time." As Carter maneuvered the shadow wraith into position, Harper turned his attention back to the control room. Patel and Vexera were huddled over a central console, their expressions grim. "We have a problem," Patel announced. "The siphon systems are directly linked to Chancellor Kralfax's life signs. It's a failsafe to prevent unauthorized shutdown." Harper's mind raced, weighing the implications. "Can we bypass it?" Vexera shook her head. "Not without time we don't have. The only way to shut it down is—" "To kill Kralfax," Harper finished, his jaw clenching. The moral weight of the decision pressed down on him. One life against potentially billions. But could he justify murder, even to save countless others? Before he could deliberate further, Cruz called out, "Incoming." A squad of Draconis loyalists burst into the room, energy weapons blazing. Harper and Cruz returned fire, their advanced weaponry cutting through the alien armor. As they fought, The battle outside intensified. Through the viewport, Harper could see the Shadow Wraith executing a series of daring maneuvers, using its propulsion systems to deflect massive chunks of debris away from the facility. Energy levels are spiking. Patel shouted over the din of battle. The singularity is about to reach critical mass. Harper made his decision. Sever the connection. Shut it down. Patel hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Her fingers flew over the console, initiating the shutdown sequence. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The siphon's massive energy conduits began to pulse erratically, the alien machinery groaning under the strain. "It's working," Vexera called out. "The siphon is powering down." As the energy levels began to drop, the gravitational anomalies intensified. Harper felt himself lifted off his feet, floating in the chaotic eddies of the failing singularity. "Brace yourselves," he shouted, grabbing onto a fixed console. The facility shuddered one final time, a massive shockwave of energy radiating outward as the stellar siphon collapsed in on itself. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect stillness. Then, with a deafening roar, gravity reasserted itself. Harper and his team crashed to the floor, along with every loose object in the room. As the dust settled, Harper struggled to his feet, surveying the scene. The control room was a wreck, but the siphon was offline. They had succeeded, but their victory came at a cost. Outside, the battle still raged. Disabled ships, no longer held in check by the singularity's pull, began to rain down on the planet's surface. "Carter," Harper called into his comm. "Status report." "The Shadow Wraith is damaged, sir," came the reply, punctuated by static. "But we're still operational. However, we're detecting multiple launches from the planet's surface. Some kind of payload being dispersed into the atmosphere." Harper's blood ran cold as he remembered Dr. Voss's biological agent. The ethical dilemma he had faced moments ago with Crowfax now paled in comparison to the potential genocide about to unfold. As alarms continued to blare and the facility crumbled around them, Harper realized their mission was just the beginning. They had stopped the stellar siphon, but at what cost? And what new challenges awaited them in the chaos they had unleashed? With the fate of two species hanging in the balance, Harper knew that the next few moments would be crucial. He turned to his team, drive etched on his face, ready to face whatever came next. Harper's mind raced as he weighed the gravity of his decision. The fate of two species hung in the balance, but he couldn't bring himself to directly cause Crowfax's death. There had to be another way. "Patel, Vexera," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I need options. Can we partially shut down the siphon without killing Crowfax?" Patel and Vexera exchanged glances, their fingers flying over the alien console. "It's risky," Patel said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But we might be able to destabilize the device without fully severing the connection." Vexera nodded, her scale features set in persistence. "It could work, but it'll be less effective. The singularity might not fully collapse." Harper glanced at the viewport, where disabled ships continued to rain down on the planet's surface. Time was running out. "Do it," he ordered. "We'll deal with the consequences." As Patel and Vexera worked furiously to implement the partial shutdown, Harper's comm crackled to life. "Sir," Carter's voice came through, tight with tension. "I'm initiating debris deflection. Shadow Wraith is decloaking now." Through the viewport, Harper watched as the sleek form of the Shadow Wraith shimmered into view. The ship's engines flared to life, creating a gravitational wake that began to divert the incoming debris. "Good work, Carter," Harper said. "But be careful. You're exposed now." No sooner had the words left his mouth than energy bolts began to streak towards the Shadow Wraith. The remaining Draconis forces had noticed the ship's sudden appearance and were now focusing their fire on it. The facility shuddered violently, and Harper stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. Alarms blared with renewed intensity. "Status report," he shouted over the din. Patel looked up from her work, her face pale. "Sir, we've triggered some kind of security protocol. The siphon is accelerating its energy absorption." Harper watched in horror as the swirling vortex of the singularity began to stabilize, its pull growing stronger by the second. "Full shutdown," he ordered, his voice grim. "We have no choice." As Patel and Vexera scrambled to comply, the doors to the control room burst open. A squad of Draconis warriors poured in, their armor gleaming and untouched by the effects of the biological agent Harper knew was being dispersed throughout the capital. "Crews," Harper called out, diving for cover as energy bolts filled the air. "Protect Patel and Vexera." The two humans found themselves engaged in a furious close-quarters battle with the Draconis elites. Harper's advanced rifle spat out rounds with deadly accuracy, but the Draconis warriors moved with inhuman speed and agility. A massive Draconis soldier charged at Harper, its clawed hands reaching for his throat. Harper ducked under the attack, using the alien's momentum to throw it over his shoulder. As he spun to face his next opponent, he caught a glimpse of Cruz locked in hand-to-hand combat with two Draconis warriors, his cybernetically enhanced reflexes barely keeping him alive. "Shutdown sequence initiated," Patel shouted over the sounds of battle. "But, sir, the singularity is approaching critical mass." Harper grunted as he narrowly avoided a swipe from a Draconis energy blade. "How long?" "Minutes, maybe less." Patel replied, her voice strained. Suddenly, Harper's calm crackled to life again. This time, it was Admiral Steele's voice that came through. "Harper, we received intel from the Arcturians," Steele said, his tone urgent. "The siphon's energy signature is off the charts. If it overloads, it could take out half the sector. We're considering a full retreat." Harper's blood ran cold. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than he could have imagined. As he wrestled with a Draconis warrior, trying to keep its snapping jaws away from his face, a new alarm began to sound. "Unidentified ship detected." Carter's voice came over the comm. "It just dropped out of FDL near the planet. Sir, its tech readings are off the charts." Harper managed to slam his opponent into a nearby console, stunning it momentarily. He glanced out the viewport and froze. A massive ship, unlike anything he had ever seen, hung in space above the Draconis homeworld. Its hull seemed to shimmer and shift, defying the laws of physics. As Harper stared at the alien vessel, time seemed to slow. The battle raged around him, Draconis warriors and human operatives locked in mortal combat. The stellar siphon hummed ominously, its energy levels climbing towards a catastrophic overload. And now, an unknown player had entered the game, its intentions a complete mystery. In that moment, Harper realized that the next few seconds would determine not just the outcome of their mission, but potentially the fate of the entire galaxy. With the siphon on the verge of collapse, Draconis elites closing in, and an unknown alien ship in orbit, he knew that his next decision could change everything. Harper's grip tightened on his weapon as he prepared to make the call that would shape the future of both humanity and the Draconis. Draconis and human forces alike. As Harper braced himself for the next wave of attacks, a blinding flash erupted from the viewport, followed by an electromagnetic pulse that rippled through the facility. In an instant, every electronic system in the control room flickered and died. The Draconis warrior's energy weapons sputtered and went dark, and Harper's own advanced rifle fell silent. For a moment, the battle froze, both sides stunned by the sudden loss of technology. Harper's comm crackled to life, Admiral Steele's voice barely audible through the static. "Harper, the alien ship. Some kind of energy pulse. All systems down." As quickly as it had gone dark, the facility hummed back to life. Harper seized the opportunity, created by the momentary lull. Patel Vexera, he shouted. Full shutdown now. The two scientists sprang into action, their fingers flying over the alien console with renewed urgency. Harper and Cruz used the confusion to press their advantage against the Draconis elites, their exosuits giving them the edge in close-quarters combat. Harper grappled with a massive Draconis warrior, using his suit's enhanced strength to match the alien's natural power. He drove his knee into the creature's midsection, following up with a quick series of strikes to its vulnerable neck scales. Nearby, Cruz was a blur of motion, his cybernetically enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge and weave between two Draconis attackers. He caught one warrior's arm mid-swing, using the alien's momentum to slam it into its companion. "Sir," Patel called out, her voice strained with concentration. "We bypassed a life sign lock. Initiating full shutdown sequence." The facility groaned and shuddered as the stellar siphon began to power down. Through the viewport, Harper could see the swirling vortex of the singularity start to destabilize. Suddenly, Carter's voice came through on the comm, clearer now as the systems recovered from the alien pulse. "Commander, we've got a problem. The siphon's containment field is failing. The singularity is going to break free." Harper's mind raced, assessing their options in a split second. Before he could respond, Carter continued, her voice tight with willpower. "I'm taking the Shadow Wraith in. We can use our shields to contain the energy long enough for you to complete the shutdown." "Carter, no," Harper shouted, but it was too late. Through the viewport, he watched as the sleek form of the Shadow Wraith dove towards the facility's main energy conduit. The ship's advanced shielding flared to life, creating a brilliant cocoon of energy around the destabilizing singularity. The strain on the vessel was immediately apparent, its hull creaking and groaning under the immense pressure. "Patel, status," Harper barked, dispatching another Draconis warrior with a well-placed strike. "Almost there," Patel replied, her fingers a blur over the console. Just a few more seconds. Those seconds stretched into an eternity as Harper watched the Shadow Wraith's shields begin to buckle. Just as he thought the ship would be torn apart, Patel let out a triumphant shout. "Shutdown complete." The stellar siphon's massive energy conduits pulsed one final time before going dark. The singularity collapsed in on itself, releasing a shockwave of energy that sent everyone in the control room staggering. As the dust settled, Harper's comm crackled to life once more. This time, it was an unfamiliar voice, speaking in a language he didn't understand. A moment later, it switched to English. "Attention human and Draconis forces. This is Archon Zalthara of the Vigilant Peacekeeping Fleet. We request an immediate cessation of hostilities and offer our services as mediators in this conflict." Harper exchanged a bewildered look with Cruz. The arrival of this new player had completely upended the battlefield. Before he could respond, the facility rocked violently. Alarms blared as the ground beneath their feet trembled. "Sir," Carter's voice came through, weak but alive. "The energy release. It's causing massive tectonic disturbances on the planet's surface." Harper's mind raced, processing the rapidly evolving situation. The stellar siphon was offline, but they had traded one crisis for another. As he watched Draconis cities crumble through the viewport, he realized that the true challenge was just beginning. "All teams," he broadcast on an open channel. "New priority. We're shifting to evacuation and disaster relief. Cruz, contact Ambassador Griffin. Tell him we need every available rescue ship and medical team." As his team scrambled to respond to the new threat, Harper's gaze was drawn back to the alien ship hanging in orbit. With the Vigilant's arrival and the planet in chaos, he knew that the next few hours would shape the future of human-Draconis relations and humanity's place in the galaxy. The battle for the stellar siphon was over, but the real work of peace was just beginning. Harper squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this new, uncertain future. As Harper steeled himself for the challenges ahead, a violent tremor shook the facility, nearly knocking him off his feet. The floor buckled beneath them, and cracks spider-webbed across the walls. "Everyone out now," Harper shouted, grabbing Patel's arm and pulling her towards the exit. Cruz and Vexera followed close behind, with the remaining Draconis warriors scrambling to evacuate as well. They burst out of the control room just as a section of the ceiling collapsed behind them. The corridor was chaos, with alarms blaring and emergency lights flashing. Harper's calm crackled to life, Admiral Steele's voice barely audible over the din. "Harper, the planet's tectonic activity is off the charts. We're seeing massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions across the globe. This is beyond anything we anticipated." Harper cursed under his breath. "Understood. Sir, what are your orders?" There was a moment of silence before Steele responded, his voice grave. "We're shifting to full-scale evacuation and disaster relief. I'm redirecting the fleet to assist. Your new priority is to coordinate ground efforts." "Copy that," Harper replied, his mind already racing through logistics. He turned to his team. "Cruz, contact Griffin. We need every available rescue ship and medical team planetside ASAP." As Cruz relayed the orders, Harper's gaze was drawn to a nearby viewport. The scene outside was apocalyptic. Massive fissures tore through the Draconis capital, swallowing entire buildings. In the distance, a volcano belched ash and fire into the sky, turning day to night. "Commander," Vexera's voice cut through his thoughts. "We need to get to the surface. I can guide you to the nearest emergency shelter." Harper nodded, grateful for the Draconis scientist's knowledge. "Lead the way." The group made their way through the crumbling facility, dodging falling debris and helping injured personnel along the way. As they emerged onto the surface, the full scale of the disaster became apparent. The once proud Draconis capital was in ruins. Skyscrapers toppled like dominoes, and the streets were rivers of molten rock. The air was thick with ash and the screams of the injured. Harper's calm chirp again. This time, it was Navigator Carter's voice that came through. "Sir, I've managed to stabilize the Shadow Wraith. We're operational, but barely. What are your orders?" "Get airborne, Carter," Harper replied. "We need eyes in the sky. Coordinate with the incoming human ships and start identifying evacuation zones." As Carter acknowledged the order, a massive shadow fell over them. Harper looked up to see the vigilant ship descending through the atmosphere, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly energy. A beam of light shot down from the vessel, materializing into the form of Archon Zaltara. The alien's appearance was both awe-inspiring and unsettling, a being of pure energy contained within a vaguely humanoid shape. "Commander Harper," the Archon's voice resonated in Harper's mind rather than his ears. "We have analyzed the planet's core. Without intervention, total collapse is imminent." Harper's blood ran cold at the implications. "Can you stop it?" The Archon's form pulsed. "We can stabilize the core temporarily, but a permanent solution will require the combined efforts of our peoples." Before Harper could respond, a Draconis dropship landed nearby. Subcommander Zexlor emerged, his scales covered in ash and his eyes wild with desperation. "Human," Zexlor addressed Harper, his voice hoarse. "Our defensive systems are offline. Our cities are falling. We need your help." The admission clearly pained the proud Draconis warrior. Harper met Zexlor's gaze, seeing not an enemy, but a fellow soldier facing an overwhelming crisis. "You have it," Harper said firmly. "We'll evacuate as many as we can." Zexlor nodded gratefully, then turned to the Archon. "And you? You are not of this galaxy. Why do you offer aid?" "We are the Vigilants," Zaltara explained. "Guardians of galactic stability. The energy signature of your stellar siphon triggered our ancient warning systems. We came to prevent a catastrophe that could have rippled across the cosmos. As if to underscore the Archon's words, another quake rocked the ground. In the distance, a massive fissure opened up, swallowing an entire district of the city. Harper's calm came to life once more. "Commander," Admiral Steele's voice rang out. "The first wave of evacuation ships is entering the atmosphere. We've got shuttles and dropships inbound to your position." "Understood, Admiral," Harper replied. He turned to Zexlor and Zaltara. "We need to establish a joint command center, somewhere stable where we can coordinate our efforts." Zexlor pointed to a massive structure in the distance, somehow still standing amidst the chaos. The Citadel of Eternal Vigilance. It was built to withstand any disaster. We can use it as our base of operations. Harper nodded. "Let's move. We've got a planet to save." As they made their way towards the Citadel, Harper couldn't help but marvel at the surreal turn of events. Mere hours ago, they had been locked in mortal combat. Now, humans, Draconis, and an ancient alien race were working together to prevent an unprecedented catastrophe. The true test of their newfound alliance was just beginning. As the ground shook beneath their feet and the sky burned above, Harper knew that the decisions made in the coming hours would shape the future of not just two species, but potentially the entire galaxy. The ground lurched beneath their feet as they approached the Citadel of Eternal Vigilance, its imposing structure a stark contrast to the crumbling cityscape around them. Harper's comm unit crackled with urgent reports from his team and incoming human ships, painting a grim picture of the escalating disaster. As they entered the Citadel's reinforced halls, Admiral Steele's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, we have a new development. The spatial distortions caused by the siphon's shutdown are expanding beyond the planet's atmosphere. We're detecting anomalies forming in neighboring star systems." Harper exchanged a worried glance with Zexlor and Zaltara. "How bad is it, Admiral?" "Bad enough that we need to shift our focus. This could become a sector-wide catastrophe if left unchecked." The Archon's energy form pulsed with concern. "We have seen such phenomena before, eons ago. The consequences were severe." Steele continued, "I'm deploying the HSS Prometheus to study these anomalies. Captain Ethan Cole will lead the mission. Harper, I need you to coordinate with him from the ground. We need every scrap of data we can get on these distortions." "Understood, sir," Harper replied, his mind already racing through the implications. He turned to Zexlor. "We need to set up evacuation centers fast. Can we use your shield technology to protect them?" The Draconis subcommander nodded. "It's possible, but our systems are failing. We'll need your help to adapt and power them." "Done," Harper said, tapping his comm. "Crews, gather our engineering team. We're going to merge human and Draconis shield tech." As crews acknowledged the order, Zaltara spoke. "Commander, my people possess ancient records that may aid in understanding these anomalies. However, accessing this knowledge will require a journey to a distant outpost." Before Harper could respond, Ambassador Griffin's voice joined the conversation. "I volunteer to lead that mission, Commander. We need all the allies and information we can get." "Agreed," Harper said. "Ambassador, assemble a team. Archon, can you provide transportation?" The energy being pulsed in affirmation. "Our vessels can traverse great distances with ease. We will ensure the ambassador's safe passage." Over the next few hours, the Citadel transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Human and Draconis engineers worked side by side, adapting shield generators to protect the hastily established evacuation centers. Medical teams from all three species coordinated their efforts, treating the injured with a combination of advanced technology and improvised solutions. Harper watched from a makeshift command center as the first shielded evacuation zone sprang to life, a dome of shimmering energy repelling falling debris and toxic ash. On screens around him, similar scenes played out across the planet as more centers came online. A priority alert drew his attention to a large display showing the HSS Prometheus entering orbit. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Commander Harper, we're detecting unusual energy signatures emanating from the largest spatial distortion," Cole reported. "We're preparing to enter the anomaly to gather more data." "Proceed with caution, Captain," Harper advised. "We can't afford to lose that ship." As Cole signed off, Zexlor approached, his scales covered in a fine layer of ash. "Commander, we have a problem. Some of my people are spreading rumors that humans engineered this crisis to conquer us. Loyalists of Chancellor Kralfax are behind it." Harper frowned. "Can you handle it?" Zexlor's eyes narrowed. "I'll do what I can, but it won't be easy. Our people are scared, and fear breeds mistrust." Before Harper could respond, alarms blared throughout the Citadel. A technician called out, "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy surge from one of the spatial distortions." Harper rushed to the main viewport, Zexlor and Zaltharai at his side. In the distance, beyond the planet's atmosphere, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Through the rift, they glimpsed what appeared to be an ancient space station, its alien architecture unlike anything they had ever seen. "By the ancestors," Zexlor breathed. Zaltharai's energy form pulsed rapidly. "That station. It bears similarities to artifacts my people have encountered before. Its technology may be capable of controlling these anomalies." Harper's comm unit crackled to life with Admiral Steele's voice. "Commander, are you seeing this?" "Affirmative, sir," Harper replied, his eyes fixed on the otherworldly structure. "I'm dispatching a joint team to investigate that station immediately," Steele ordered. "We need to know if it can help us contain this crisis." As Harper acknowledged the order, he felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The evacuation efforts, the expanding anomalies, the mysterious station. Every decision made in the coming hours could mean the difference between salvation and catastrophe. He turned to face the assembled leaders, human, Draconis, and vigilant. "We've got our missions. Let's move." As the group dispersed to their respective tasks, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something far greater than they could imagine. The battle for the stellar siphon had opened a Pandora's box of cosmic proportions, and now they were racing against time to close it before it consumed them all. As Harper and his team prepared to face the challenges ahead, the HSS Prometheus ventured deeper into the largest spatial distortion. Captain Ethan Cole stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of energy that engulfed his ship. "Status report," Cole barked, his voice tense with anticipation. Lieutenant Sato, the ship's science officer, hunched over a console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Sir, we're detecting an unprecedented energy signature at the center of the anomaly. It's off the charts." Cole leaned forward, studying the readings on the main view screen. The energy pattern pulsed and shifted, defying all known laws of physics. "Any match in our database?" Sato shook her head. "Negative. Sir, this doesn't correspond to any natural phenomenon we've ever encountered." A thoughtful frown creased Cole's brow. "Could it be artificial?" "It's possible," Sato replied, her voice tinged with excitement. "The regularity of the energy fluctuations suggests some form of controlled output." Cole tapped his comm unit. "Bridge to engineering. How are our systems holding up?" Chief Engineer Ramos's voice crackled through the speakers. "We're stable for now, Captain, but I wouldn't recommend pushing our luck. This anomaly is putting immense strain on our shields." "Understood," Cole replied. "Hold position here." We need to gather as much data as possible before reporting back to command. As the Prometheus hovered at the edge of the unknown, events were unfolding rapidly elsewhere in the sector. On the ancient space station hidden within another spatial distortion, Commander Harper led a joint human Draconis vigilant team through corridors that had lain dormant for millennia. The air was stale, filled with the musty scent of long-forgotten secrets. Harper's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing intricate patterns etched into the walls. Beside him, Zexlor ran a hand over the alien script, his eyes wide with wonder. "This craftsmanship," the Draconis subcommander murmured. "It's unlike anything in our historical records." Archon Zalthara's energy form pulsed with recognition. "These symbols. They bear similarities to artifacts my people have encountered in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. We believe they belong to a civilization known as the Precursors." Harper's calm unit crackled to life. "Commander," Lieutenant Vega's voice rang out, "we've found what appears to be the station's main computer core. You're going to want to see this." Following Vega's directions, the team made their way to a vast chamber dominated by a towering crystalline structure. As they approached, the crystal began to glow, pulsing with an inner light. "Careful," Harper warned, but his caution was unnecessary. The crystal flared brightly, and a holographic image materialized before them. The being that appeared was humanoid, yet unmistakably alien. Its form shimmered with an otherworldly grace as it began to speak, its voice echoing through time itself. "Greetings, Seekers," the hologram said. "If you are viewing this message, then the fail-safes we put in place have activated. The stellar siphon you have discovered was not merely a tool for harvesting energy. It was a vital component in a galactic defense network, created to protect against a threat from beyond the boundaries of our galaxy." Harper exchanged shocked glances with his team as the hologram continued, detailing the nature of the impending danger and the purpose of the precursor technology they had stumbled upon. As the implications of this revelation sank in, Harper's calm unit chimed again. This time, it was Admiral Steele's voice that filled the air. "Commander, we have a new development. Dr. Voss has made a breakthrough in his research on the Draconis telepaths." Harper listened intently as Steele explained the unexpected ability of certain Draconis to sense and influence the spatial distortions. The formation of a special task force combining these telepaths with human scientists and vigilant energy specialists offered a glimmer of hope in the face of the expanding crisis. "We're going to need every advantage we can get, Admiral," Harper replied, his mind racing with the possibilities. "The station we're on seems to be capable of manipulating these anomalies, but we're still figuring out how to control it." As Harper coordinated with Steele, tensions were rising on the Draconis homeworld. Subcommander Zexlor found himself facing a crisis of a different kind. Reports of violent protests incited by Kralfax loyalists flooded in from major cities across the planet. Standing in the command center of the Citadel of Eternal Vigilance, Zexlor watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. His scales bristled with frustration as he realized that traditional Draconis tactics would only escalate the situation. Taking a deep breath, Zexlor made a decision that would have been unthinkable mere days ago. He turned to the human liaison officer stationed beside him. "Contact your superiors. Request human peacekeeping forces to assist in quelling these riots." The officer's eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly composed himself and nodded. "Right away, sir." As the request was relayed, Zexlor knew he was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. But as he watched human dropships descend through the ash-filled sky, he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this unprecedented cooperation could be the key to saving not just his world, but the entire sector. In orbit above the battered planet, Admiral Marcus Steele received an urgent transmission from the Arturian Collective. The AI-generated report painted a grim picture. If left unchecked, the spatial distortions would engulf the entire Draconis sector within weeks, potentially destabilizing a significant portion of the galaxy. Steele's teeth gritted as he processed the information. The window for finding a solution was rapidly closing. He opened a channel to all task force leaders. "This is Admiral Steele. The situation has escalated. We need results, and we need them now. Whatever you're doing, push harder. The fate of the sector depends on it." As Steele's message echoed across the various teams, Commander Harper made a crucial discovery on the precursor station. In a hidden control room, they found a system capable of manipulating the spatial distortions. However, the technology required a specific type of energy to function, an energy that matched the mysterious signature detected by the HSS Prometheus. Harper's eyes lit up with realization. "We need to establish a link between the station and the energy source at the heart of the largest anomaly. It's our best shot at controlling these distortions." As the team began formulating a plan to connect the two sites, a new player entered the game. A sleek, otherworldly vessel appeared at the edge of the system, its design unlike anything seen before. A transmission cut through the comm channels, introducing the isolationist species known as the Quantum Architects. Their representative, Grand Designer Zilvax, appeared on screens across the Alliance fleet. The alien's form was a mesmerizing blend of organic and crystalline structures, its voice resonating with an air of ancient wisdom. "We have observed your struggle," Zilvax stated, "and we offer our assistance. Our technology can stabilize the spatial distortions threatening this sector. However, we require something in return: all the information you have gathered about the precursors and the ancient threat they faced." The Alliance leadership found themselves faced with a difficult decision. The Quantum Architect's technology could be the key to averting disaster, but sharing such sensitive information could have far-reaching consequences for galactic security. As discussions began, the various threads of the crisis began to intertwine. The HSS Prometheus hovered at the heart of the largest anomaly, poised to uncover its secrets. The team on the precursor station raced to activate its ancient systems. The newly formed task force of telepathic Draconis prepared to test their abilities against the fabric of space itself. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Ambassador Richard Griffin's mission to the abandoned Vigilant Outpost faced its own challenges. Unaware of the crucial role they might play in the unfolding drama, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just the Draconis sector, but potentially the entire galaxy. As Harper coordinated the efforts from the precursor station, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and time was running out. Admiral Marcus Steele's face appeared on the main view screen of the precursor station, his expression grave. "Commander Harper, we need to talk. I'm calling an emergency meeting with all key Alliance leaders. We have a situation." Harper nodded, his mind racing. "Understood, Admiral. I'll be there shortly." Within moments, Harper found himself in a holographic conference room aboard Steele's flagship. The air was thick with tension as Subcommander Zexlor, Archon Zalthara, and a flickering image of Ambassador Richard Griffin materialized around the table. Admiral Steele wasted no time. "We received an offer from a species known as the Quantum Architects. They claim to have technology that can stabilize the spatial distortions, but they want all our information on the precursors and the ancient threat in return." Zexlor's scales rippled with concern. "Can we trust them? We know nothing of these Quantum Architects." "Their timing is convenient," Zalthara added, his energy form pulsing slowly. Griffin's hologram leaned forward. "Admiral, my team has recovered data cores from the Vigilant Outpost. They might contain crucial information about the precursors. We can't risk losing that to an unknown entity." Steele's expression resolute as he considered their options. The room fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging over them all. Finally, The Admiral spoke. "We don't have the luxury of time or suspicion. The Arcturian Collective's projections show we have weeks, at best, before the distortions engulf the entire sector. We need that technology." He took a deep breath. "I'm accepting their offer." As the others began to voice their concerns, Steele held up a hand. "I understand the risks, but the potential benefits outweigh them. We'll share what we must, but we'll be cautious. Commander Harper, your team will work closely with the quantum architects. Keep a close eye on them." Harper nodded, his mind already formulating plans. "Understood, sir." Steele turned to his communications officer. "Send a secure transmission to Grand Designer Zilvax. Invite them to join our efforts at the Draconis homeworld." As the meeting adjourned, Harper's attention was drawn to an incoming transmission from the HSS Prometheus. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared, his eyes wide with excitement. "Commander, we've made a discovery. There's a massive structure at the center of this anomaly, some kind of energy collection array. It's far more advanced than the stellar siphon." Harper leaned in, his interest piqued. Could it be part of the Precursor's defense network? Cole nodded. "That's our theory. We're attempting to get closer, but the energy levels are off the charts. We'll need something to stabilize the area if we want to investigate further." "Understood, Captain. Hold your position for now. We might have a solution coming our way soon." As Harper ended the transmission, he turned to his team on the Precursor station. "All right, people. We need to establish a connection between the station and that energy array. Let's move." The team sprang into action, their fingers flying over alien consoles as they attempted to decipher the ancient technology. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity, but progress was slow. Frustrated, Harper hit his fist on a nearby panel. "It's no use. We're missing something." As if in response to his outburst, a holographic interface flickered to life, displaying a complex series of symbols. Harper's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. "It's some kind of organic interface," he muttered. We need the Draconis telepaths." Harper quickly contacted Admiral Steele, explaining the situation. The Admiral's response was immediate. "I'll send a team your way as soon as possible. In the meantime, Dr. Voss has developed a neural amplification device for the telepaths. We're mass-producing them now." As Harper's team awaited the arrival of the Draconis telepaths, events continued to unfold across the sector. On the Draconis homeworld, Subcommander Zexlor watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension as human peacekeepers worked alongside Draconis forces to quell the unrest. The sight of the two species cooperating seemed to have a calming effect on the populace. In the central square of the capital city, a human soldier helped a Draconis child reunite with its parent, the scene captured and broadcast across the planet. Slowly but surely, public opinion began to shift. Zexlor allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps there was hope for lasting peace after all. His moment of reflection was interrupted by the arrival of Grand Designer Zilvax and the Quantum Architects fleet. The alien ships were unlike anything Zexlor had ever seen, their hulls shimmering with an otherworldly energy. Zilvax's form was equally mesmerizing, a perfect blend of organic and crystalline structures. When the Grand Designer spoke, its voice seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "We come to fulfill our part of the agreement," Zilvax stated. "Our subspace stabilizers are capable of creating localized bubbles of stable space within the distortions. This should allow for safe travel and communication through the affected areas." Admiral Steele, who had arrived to greet the Quantum Architects, nodded appreciatively. "Your assistance is most welcome, Grand Designer. We'll integrate your technology into our strategy immediately." As Steele began coordinating with Captain Cole and Commander Harper, utilizing the new subspace stabilizers to create safe corridors for their operations, a new alert blared across the command center. "Admiral," a sensor operator called out. Long-range sensors are detecting a swarm of unidentified objects entering the sector. They're moving at incredible speeds, sir, heading straight for the spatial distortions. Steele's blood ran cold as he studied the sensor readings. The objects were like nothing he had ever seen before, possibly automated probes or drones, but of unknown origin. Could this be related to the ancient threat mentioned in the precursor message? Zexlor asked, his voice low with concern. Steele's expression hardened. It's a possibility we can't ignore. Whatever these things are, they're heading our way fast. He turned to face the assembled leaders. Human, Draconis, Vigilant, and now Quantum Architect. Ladies and gentlemen, our time frame just got a lot shorter. We need to activate that precursor defense network, stabilize these distortions, and prepare for a potential confrontation. As the Alliance scrambled to meet this new threat, the HSS Prometheus continued its perilous journey towards the heart of the largest anomaly. Captain Cole stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of energy that surrounded his ship. "Steady as she goes," he murmured, more to himself than to his crew. "Whatever's out there, we're going to find it." The Prometheus inched forward, protected by a bubble of stable space created by the Quantum Architect's technology. As they approached the massive energy collection array, Cole couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of a discovery that would change everything. Little did he know, the true scale of the challenge they faced was only just beginning to reveal itself. As the unidentified swarm drew ever closer, the Alliance raced against time to uncover the secrets of the precursors and prepare for a conflict that could determine the fate of the stars itself. As the unidentified swarm drew ever closer, Admiral Marcus Steele's voice cut through the tense atmosphere of the command center. "We need to act now. Implement Operation Nexus." The Admiral's words set off a flurry of activity across the Alliance. On the bridge of the HSS Prometheus, Captain Ethan Cole received the transmission and immediately sprang into action. "Helm, engage the subspace stabilizers," Cole ordered, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of energy surrounding his ship. "Create a stable corridor and take us in closer to that array." The Prometheus inched forward, protected by a shimmering bubble of stable space. As they approached the massive energy collection structure, the ship's sensors lit up with new data. "Captain," the science officer called out, "I'm detecting subspace energy fluctuations. The array isn't just collecting energy from normal space. It's tapping directly into subspace." Cole's eyes widened. That could be the key to powering the entire precursor defense network. We need to find a way to interface with it. Meanwhile, on the precursor station, Commander Jack Harper and his team worked feverishly to prepare for the arrival of the Draconis telepaths. As Harper activated another binaural interface, the station hummed with newfound energy. "It's responding," Harper muttered, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. "But we're still missing something crucial." A comm channel crackled to life. "Commander Harper, this is Commander Vexnor of the Draconis Telepathic Task Force. We're en route to your position, but we're encountering heavy resistance from the spatial distortions." Harper frowned. "Resistance? What do you mean?" "The anomalies." Vexnor's voice was strained. "They're reacting to our presence. It's as if they have some form of rudimentary intelligence. We're using the neural amplification devices to push through, but it's slow going." On the Draconis homeworld, Sub-Commander Zexlor felt the ground beneath his feet tremble. Another earthquake, stronger than the last. He turned to his second-in-command, his expression grim. "We have no choice," Zexlor said. "Initiate full planetary evacuation. Contact the human fleet. We'll need all available ships to transport our people to safety." As the evacuation order spread across the Draconis world, panic gave way to a strange sense of unity. Humans and Draconis worked side by side, loading civilians onto transport ships as the planet shuddered around them. In Earth orbit, General Elena Rodriguez oversaw the deployment of the Global Defense Initiative's advanced satellite network. The sleek, weaponized platforms took up positions around the planet and key human colonies, their sensors primed to detect any approaching threat. Satellites are in position, General, her aide reported. Long-range scanners are active and covering all approach vectors. Rodriguez nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical displays. Now we wait and hope it's enough. Back in the Draconis sector, Grand Designer Zilvax's crystalline form shimmered as it interfaced with the Alliance's command systems. We are ready to begin creating the stable corridor network. The alien's multi-tone voice resonated through the command center. Admiral Steele nodded. Proceed, Grand Designer. We need those pathways operational as soon as possible. As Zilvax's ships began their intricate dance through space, weaving a web of stable subspace corridors, Ambassador Richard Griffin's team made a breakthrough in their analysis of the recovered data cores. Admiral, Griffin's hologram flickered to life in the command center. We've found references to something called the Void Collective. It seems to be the entity the precursors were fighting against. The approaching swarm. It might be an advanced scout force. Steele's expression hardened. Can you tell us anything about their capabilities? Griffin shook his head. Not yet, but we're working on it. Whatever they are, the precursors considered them a grave threat. As the various elements of Operation Nexus unfolded across the sector, the swarm of unidentified objects continued its relentless approach. At the edge of the sector, a mixed human Draconis defense fleet took up position, their weapons primed and shields at maximum. Aboard the fleet's flagship, Fleet Commander Thora Chen watched the long-range sensor displays with growing unease. The swarm's speed and coordination defied conventional physics, suggesting a level of technology far beyond their own. All ships maintain formation, Chen ordered. We hold the line here, no matter what comes through that spatial distortion. As tension mounted across the sector, the telepathic Draconis task force finally broke through the turbulent anomalies surrounding the precursor station. Commander Vexnor led his team aboard, their minds already reaching out to connect with the ancient technology. Harper met them at the airlock, his face a mixture of relief and urgency. We prepared the bioneural interfaces. This way, quickly. As the Draconis telepods took their positions around the station, interfacing directly with the precursor systems, the entire structure came alive with pulsing energy. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing a vast network of defense installations spread across the sector. It's working, Harper breathed, watching as the station's systems responded to the telepathic commands. We're gaining control of the network. But even as hope began to rise, alarms blared across every Allied ship and installation. The swarm had arrived at the edge of the sector, and the first shots of an unprecedented battle were about to be fired. The mixed human Draconis defense fleet engaged the incoming swarm, their weapons blazing against the night sky. Fleet Commander Thora Chen's voice crackled over the comms. All ships maintain formation. Concentrate fire on the lead elements. The unidentified objects revealed themselves as highly advanced autonomous drones, their hulls shimmering with an otherworldly energy. As Alliance weapons fire struck them, the drones exhibited an uncanny ability to repair themselves, their forms shifting and reconstituting almost instantly. Adjust targeting algorithms, Chen ordered, her voice tight with tension. These things are adaptive. We need to overwhelm their repair capabilities. Back on the precursor station, Commander Jack Harper led the newly arrived Draconis telepathic task force to the bioneural interfaces. Commander Vexnor, his scaled skin glistening with a fine sheen of sweat, placed his hands on the pulsing organic controls. Ready yourselves, Vexnor instructed his team. This will be unlike anything we've experienced before. As the Draconis operatives connected with the ancient technology, the station hummed to life. Holographic displays burst into existence, filling the control room with a dazzling array of light and information. Harper's eyes widened as he took in the sudden influx of data. It's working. We're gaining access to the entire precursor defense network. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Prometheus, Captain Ethan Cole and his crew made a startling discovery about the massive energy collection array they'd been studying. "Captain," the science officer reported, excitement evident in his voice, "the array isn't just collecting energy, it's capable of redirecting and focusing it." Cole leaned forward, his mind racing with possibilities. If we can harness that power, we might be able to stabilize the spatial distortions, or even use it as a weapon against the swarm. On the Draconis homeworld, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The ground shook violently, massive fissures opening up and swallowing entire city blocks. Sub-Commander Zexlor coordinated frantically with the human fleet, his voice strained as he issued orders. "We need more ships. The southern continent is becoming uninhabitable." Massive colony ships, hastily repurposed from both human and Draconis fleets, descended through the turbulent atmosphere. Crowds of panicked Draconis civilians surged towards the landing zones, guided by mixed teams of human and Draconis personnel. In Earth orbit, Ambassador Richard Griffin's team made a breakthrough in their analysis of the recovered data cores. Griffin's hologram flickered to life in Admiral Steele's command center, his expression grave. "Admiral, we've uncovered critical information about the Void Collective. The approaching swarm. It's a networked intelligence, a hive mind." Steele's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. "That explains their coordinated tactics. Any weaknesses we can exploit?" Before Griffin could respond, alarms blared across the command center. Grand Designer Zilvax's crystalline form shimmered as it interfaced directly with the Alliance's systems. "The spatial distortions are becoming more volatile," the alien's multi-tone voice resonated. "Several of our stable corridors are on the verge of collapse." Steele turned to the tactical display, his mind racing. "If those corridors fail, we'll lose our supply lines and evacuation routes. We need to stabilize them now." Back on the precursor station, Commander Vexnor made a startling discovery as he delved deeper into the ancient systems. His voice, tinged with awe and urgency, cut through the hum of activity. "Commander Harper, we've found something. A subsystem, specifically designed to counter the Void Collective's technology." Harper moved quickly to Vexnor's side, studying the holographic interface. "Can we activate it?" Vexnor's expression tightened. "Yes, but it requires an enormous amount of energy, more than the station currently has access to." Harper's eyes widened as he made the connection. He quickly opened a channel to the Prometheus. "Captain Cole, that energy array you discovered, we need its power redirected to the station immediately." As Cole acknowledged the request and set his crew to work, Admiral Steele's voice cut across all channels. "This is our chance. All ships, execute Maneuver Omega-3. We're going to lure that swarm right to the station's doorstep." Across the sector, Alliance ships began a coordinated series of tactical retreats, drawing the Void Collective's drones closer to the precursor station. The battle intensified, with casualties mounting on both sides. Fleet Commander Chen's flagship took a direct hit, its shields flickering dangerously. "We can't hold this position much longer, Admiral." "Just a little more time," Steele responded, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Cole, Harper, tell me you're ready." On the Prometheus, Captain Cole worked feverishly at his console. "Almost there, Admiral. Energy redirection in 3, 2, 1. A brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the collection array, connecting with the precursor station in a dazzling display of light and power. The station thrummed with newfound energy, its ancient systems fully awakening for the first time in millennia. Commander Harper turned to Vexnor, nodding grimly. "Do it." Vexnor closed his eyes, his mind melding completely with the precursor technology. He activated the anti-void subsystem, unleashing a wave of energy that washed over the approaching swarm. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Then, one by one, the Void Collective drones began to falter, their coordinated movements becoming erratic and disjointed. "It's working," Chen exclaimed, watching as the swarm's formation broke apart. Their hive mind is disrupted. As the Alliance forces pressed their sudden advantage, a new crisis emerged. The energy required to power the anti-void weapon had further destabilized the spatial distortions. Grand Designer Zilvax's voice rang out in alarm. "The subspace corridors are collapsing at an accelerated rate. If we don't act quickly, large portions of the sector will be cut off entirely." Admiral Steele surveyed the tactical displays, his mind racing to form a new plan. The battle against the Void Collective was turning in their favor, but at what cost? With the Draconis homeworld tearing itself apart and the very fabric of space threatening to isolate entire regions, the human-led Alliance faced a race against time on multiple fronts. As Steele opened his mouth to issue new orders, a fresh wave of alarms blared across the command center. The fight for the future of the Draconis sector, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was a long way to go. From its precarious position, the fate of entire civilizations hung in the balance as Admiral Steele prepared to make his most daring move yet. "All ships, prepare to execute Operation Sunburst," Steele's voice rang out across the command channels. "Captain Cole, stand by to initiate energy transfer." Aboard the HSS Prometheus, Captain Ethan Cole's fingers flew across his console. "Aye, Admiral. Energy redirection protocols engaged." The massive collection array hummed to life, its intricate network of conduits glowing with barely suppressed power. As the energy began to flow towards the precursor station, the Prometheus shuddered violently. "Hull breach on Deck 4, Cole's first officer shouted. "Containment fields holding, but barely." Cole gritted his teeth. "Divert auxiliary power to structural integrity. We need to hold this ship together just a little longer." On the precursor station, Commander Jack Harper watched as the ancient systems came to life around him. The Draconis telepathic team, led by Commander Vexnor, had fully integrated with the bioneural interfaces, their minds merging with the station's vast network. "Energy levels approaching critical mass," Harper reported, his eyes fixed on the pulsing holographic displays. "Vexnor, are you ready?" The Draconis commander's eyes were closed in deep concentration. "We are prepared, Harper. The weapon's targeting systems are aligning with our neural pathways." As the station powered up, the human Draconis defense fleet executed a series of intricate maneuvers. Fleet Commander Victor Volkov's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, maintain formation Delta 6. We need to keep the swarm's attention focused on us." The Allied vessels weaved through space, their engines straining as they drew the relentless Void Collective drones towards the waiting precursor station. Explosions blossomed in the void as ships on both sides fell to withering fire. Volkov to Steele. The fleet commander's voice was tight with tension. "We've lost the Intrepid and the Draconis cruiser Sharvex. We can't hold this position much longer." "Understood, Commander," Steele replied. "Just a few more minutes. We're almost there." On the surface of the dying Draconis homeworld, Subcommander Zexlor made the hardest decision of his life. "This is Zexlor to all remaining military personnel. Abandon your posts and assist with civilian evacuation immediately. I repeat, abandon your posts." As the last defenders rushed to the overburdened evacuation ships, the ground beneath them buckled and heaved. Entire cities disappeared into yawning chasms as the planet's core destabilized. In the network of spatial corridors, Grand Designer Zilvax's crystalline form pulsed with strain. The quantum architect had physically connected himself to the corridor control systems, using his very life essence to maintain their stability. The corridors are failing. Zilvax's multi-tone voice resonated through the command network. I cannot hold them much longer. Just as all seemed lost, Ambassador Richard Griffin's hologram flickered to life in Steele's command center. Admiral, we've found something. The precursors built a failsafe into their defense network, a subspace shockwave capable of repelling the Void Collective. Steele's eyes narrowed. What's the catch, Ambassador? Griffin's expression was grim. The shockwave could devastate inhabited systems in its path. It's a last resort, Admiral. Before Steele could respond, Captain Cole's voice cut through the chatter. Energy transfer complete. The station is at full power. On the precursor station, Vex Nor's eyes snapped open. Initiating anti-void weapon sequence now. A pulse of blinding energy erupted from the station, washing over the approaching swarm. The effect was instantaneous. The Void Collective drones, cut off from their hive mind, began to drift aimlessly. It's working, Volkov shouted. All ships, concentrate fire on the disabled drones. The Allied fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, tearing through the now vulnerable swarm. For a moment, it seemed victory was at hand. But then, long-range sensors lit up with a new, terrifying signal. Admiral, Griffin's voice was filled with dread. We're detecting a massive force approaching from the galactic rim. It's the main body of the Void Collective. Steele's eyes hardened as he surveyed the tactical displays. The approaching force dwarfed anything they had faced so far. With a heavy heart, he made his decision. This is Admiral Steele to all Allied forces. Prepare to evacuate the sector. We're activating the precursor failsafe. As the order went out, the Draconis homeworld entered its final death throes. Subcommander Zexlor watched from the bridge of the last evacuation ship as his world literally crumbled beneath him. May the spirits guide us, he whispered, tears streaming down his scaled face as the ship accelerated away from the collapsing planet. On the precursor station, Harper's hands flew over the ancient controls. Failsafe charging. Prepare for shockwave in 30 seconds. Across the sector, ships raced for the nearest stable corridor. Their engines pushed beyond safe limits. The massive collection array poured its remaining energy into the station, the structure vibrating with almost unchecked power. 10 seconds. Harper called out, his voice strained. Vex Nor and his team, still linked to the station's systems, braced themselves for the coming surge. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash erupted from the station, expanding outward at impossible speed. The subspace shockwave engulfed everything in its path, the approaching Void Collective, the remnants of the initial swarm, and the fragments of the shattered Draconis homeworld. As the wave passed through the sector, all technology went dark. Ships drifted powerless. Their crews plunged into darkness and silence. The spatial corridors flickered and collapsed, severing the carefully constructed network. In the chaotic aftermath, as emergency systems slowly came back online, Admiral Steele found himself adrift in a sea of destruction. The immediate threat had been repelled, but at a staggering cost. As he began the monumental task of regrouping the scattered Allied forces, Steele couldn't help but wonder, had they truly won or merely postponed the inevitable? With millions of Draconis now homeless and an unknown number of casualties, the true test of the human-led alliance was just beginning. As Steele's ship systems gradually rebooted, he steeled himself for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that the battle for survival was far from finished. As the blinding flash of the subspace shockwave faded, Admiral Marcus Steele found himself surrounded by darkness. The bridge of his flagship was eerily silent, save for the occasional spark from damaged consoles and the labored breathing of his crew. "Status report," Steele called out, his voice cutting through the gloom. Slowly, Emergency lights flickered to life, bathing the bridge in a dim red glow. His executive officer, Commander Sarah Chin, pulled herself up from the floor, a trickle of blood running down her forehead. "Auxiliary power coming online, sir," she reported, wiping the blood away with her sleeve. "Main systems are still down. We're running diagnostics now." Steele nodded grimly. "Get me a sector-wide comm sweep. We need to re-establish contact with our forces." As Chun set to work, Steele made his way to the flickering tactical display. The holographic image sputtered and wavered, showing a chaotic view of the sector. Alliance ships drifted aimlessly, their power signatures weak or non-existent. The space where the Draconis homeworld once stood was now an expanding cloud of debris. "Sir, we're picking up scattered distress signals," Chin announced. "It's a mess out there." Steele's face hardened. "Prioritize those signals. I want rescue teams deployed as soon as we have propulsion." Hours passed as the flagship systems gradually came back online. Reports trickled in from across the sector, painting a grim picture of the aftermath. Steele stood at the center of the storm, coordinating rescue efforts and trying to piece together the scattered Alliance forces. A priority transmission cut through the chatter. "This is Commander Harper to any Alliance forces. We're trapped in the Precursor Station's control room. Life support is failing. Request immediate assistance." Steele immediately redirected the nearest functional ships to the station's coordinates. "Hold on, Harper," he muttered. "Help is on the way." Another signal caught his attention. It was Captain Ethan Cole of the HSS Prometheus, his voice strained but excited. "Admiral, we've made a discovery. The energy collection array. It's still partially operational. This could be crucial for our recovery efforts." Steele's mind raced with the implications. "Understood, Captain. Secure that array. I'm dispatching a team to assist you." As the rescue operations continued, Subcommander Zexlor's face appeared on the main view screen. Behind him, Steele could see a vast flotilla of ships packed with Draconis refugees. "Admiral," Zexlor said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and grief, "we've salvaged what we could, but my people are without a home. We require assistance." Steele nodded solemnly. "You'll have it, Subcommander. I'm initiating Operation Safe Haven. We'll find your people a place to rebuild." The Admiral turned to his staff. "I want surveys of all habitable planets and moons in the stable regions of the sector. We need to start setting up temporary colonies immediately." As the orders went out, another crisis emerged. An aide from the quantum architects appeared on a secondary screen, his crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "Admiral Steele, Grand Designer Zilvax has fallen into a comatose state. His efforts to maintain the spatial corridors have taken a severe toll. We require immediate assistance to stabilize the remaining corridors." Steele felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every decision now could mean the difference between survival and collapse for millions. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Deploy our best medical teams to Zilvax," he ordered, "and get me a status report on all remaining spatial corridors. We need those routes for evacuation and rebuilding efforts." As the Alliance forces scrambled to address the mounting crises, Ambassador Richard Griffin's face appeared on yet another screen. "Admiral, I've begun compiling all the data we've gathered on the Void Collective and the Precursor technology. We need to understand what we're dealing with if they return." Steele nodded. "Good work, Ambassador. Set up a secure database for that information. We'll need every advantage we can get." Just then, a junior officer approached Steele, his face pale. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity at the sector's edge. It looks like a small contingent of the Void Collective may have survived the shockwave." The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he studied the sensor readings. The threat wasn't over. It had only changed form. He turned to address his command staff, his voice firm and resolute. Listen up. We've got multiple crises to handle, and we need to move fast. First priority is rescue and stabilization. Get our people off that precursor station and secure that energy array. Second, we need to establish safe havens for the Draconis refugees. Third, we need to understand what that shockwave did to subspace in the sector. He paused, looking each of his officers in the eye. And all the while, we need to prepare for the possibility that the Void Collective might return. We've bought ourselves some time, but we can't waste a second of it. As the staff sprang into action, Steele turned back to the view screen, watching as rescue ships converged on the damaged precursor station. The battle was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. The fate of millions now rested on the decisions they would make in the coming days and weeks. The Admiral's gaze drifted to the sea of stars beyond the view screen. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Void Collective were regrouping, adapting. And when they returned, Steele knew they would face a united alliance, forged in the crucible of this crisis. Devastation and hope. The immediate threat had been repelled, but the cost was staggering. As emergency systems gradually came back online, Steele's mind raced with the monumental task ahead. Commander Chun, set a course for the nearest habitable moon, Steele ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. We need to establish a forward command post. Within hours, shuttles touched down on the surface of a small, rocky moon that would soon be known as Hope's Landing. Prefabricated structures rose from the barren landscape as teams worked tirelessly to create a functional command center. Steele stood at the heart of the newly established operations room, surrounded by flickering holographic displays and the constant chatter of incoming reports. His first priority was clear: rescue key personnel and secure critical assets. Commander Donovan, report to the briefing room immediately. Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. Alex Donovan, a grizzled veteran of the Human Expeditionary Force, strode into the room moments later. His weathered face bore the marks of countless battles, but his eyes were sharp and alert. Sir, Donovan stood at attention. Steele pulled up a holographic image of the damaged precursor station. I need you to lead a rescue operation. Commander Harper and the Draconis team are still trapped inside. Time is of the essence. Donovan nodded, studying the station's schematics. We'll need specialized cutting tools and portable life support systems. The structure looks highly unstable. You'll have everything you need, Steele assured him. Get your team ready. You leave in 30 minutes. As Donovan departed, Steele turned his attention to the next crisis. The image of Subcommander Zexlor appeared on the main view screen, his scaled face etched with worry. Admiral, the situation in the refugee fleet is deteriorating, Zexlor reported. Our supplies are critically low, and unrest is spreading among the civilians. Steele's teeth gritted. I understand, Subcommander. I'm diverting a significant portion of our resources to support your people. Hold on just a little longer. The Admiral quickly issued orders, redirecting supply ships and support vessels to the Draconis refugee fleet. As he worked, reports continued to flood in from across the sector. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on another screen. Admiral, we've made progress with the energy collection array. You're not going to believe this, but it seems capable of harnessing energy from quantum fluctuations in subspace. Steele's eyes widened at the implications. That's incredible, Captain. Continue your work and keep me updated. This could be a game changer. The command center bustled with activity as Steele coordinated the massive rescue and reconstruction efforts. He dispatched teams to survey habitable planets, initiated the construction of emergency colonies, and began pooling resources from all allied species. Hours later, Commander Donovan's voice crackled over the comm. Rescue team to command. We've successfully extracted Commander Harper and the Draconis team. But, sir, there's something else. We've discovered a hidden chamber containing encrypted precursor data crystals. Excellent work, Commander, Steele replied. Bring those crystals directly to me when you return. As the rescue operations continued, Steele called for the first meeting of the Emergency Council. Representatives from the human, Draconis, Vigilant, and Quantum Architect species gathered in a hastily prepared conference room. Ladies and gentlemen, Steele addressed the assembled delegates, we face unprecedented challenges. Our first order of business is to implement a sector-wide resource-sharing agreement. We must pool our remaining assets to address the humanitarian crisis at hand. The council debated for hours, but ultimately reached a consensus. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Richard Griffin approached Steele. Admiral, I've assembled a team of cryptographers to work on the precursor data, Griffin reported. We're making progress, but some of what we're uncovering is deeply troubling. Steele raised an eyebrow. What have you found? Griffin lowered his voice. The Void Collective. It's not just an external threat. It appears to be a transdimensional entity capable of infiltrating and corrupting organic life forms. We may be dealing with sleeper agents within our own ranks. The Admiral's face darkened at this news. Before he could respond, an aide rushed into the room. Sir, we're detecting unusual subspace fluctuations across the sector, the aide reported breathlessly. Ships are experiencing dangerous FTL drive malfunctions when trying to enter or leave the area. Steele's mind raced, processing the new information. He turned to the aide, his voice firm and decisive. Establish a quarantine zone around the affected area immediately. No ships in or out until we understand what's happening. As the aide hurried to carry out the order, Steele gazed out the window at the bustling activity on Hope's Landing. The scope of the challenges they faced was immense, but humanity and its allies had proven their resilience time and time again. The Admiral's eyes narrowed with commitment. They had survived the initial onslaught of the Void Collective, but the real work was just beginning. With the sector isolated and resources dwindling, every decision would be crucial. Steele turned back to the command center, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of millions rested on their actions in the coming days and weeks, and he was determined to see them through this crisis. Steele's gaze lingered on the bustling activity outside before he turned back to the command center. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders as he considered their next moves. Admiral, a voice called out. It was Ambassador Griffin, his face etched with concern. We need to discuss the long-term implications of our situation. Steele nodded, gesturing for Griffin to join him at the central holographic display. As they studied the shifting patterns of data, Steele spoke quietly. You're right, Richard. We can't keep operating on a day-to-day basis. We need a more permanent structure. Over the next few days, Steele worked tirelessly with representatives from all allied species to draft a proposal for a new governing body. In a historic meeting held in the newly constructed Assembly Hall on Hope's Landing, Admiral Marcus Steele addressed the gathered delegates. Today, we stand at a crossroads, Steele began, his voice carrying across the hushed chamber. The challenges we face are unprecedented, but so is our unity. I propose the formation of the Draconis Sector Provisional Government, a body that will oversee the long-term reconstruction and defense of our sector. The chamber erupted in a flurry of discussion. Questions were raised, concerns voiced, and compromises negotiated. After hours of debate, the proposal was put to a vote. The result was unanimous. The DSPG was born. No sooner had the ink dried on the founding documents than the fledgling government faced its first major crisis. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. Admiral, we're facing critical shortages across the board, Cole reported. The subspace anomalies are preventing us from bringing in supplies from outside the sector. At our current rate of consumption, we'll be out of essential materials within weeks. Steele's mind raced, considering their options. His eyes fell on a report detailing the debris field of the destroyed Draconis homeworld. A risky plan began to form. "Captain Cole, prepare the Prometheus for a new mission," Steele ordered. "We're initiating Operation Deep Dive. Your objective is to explore and potentially mine the debris field for resources." Cole's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We'll begin preparations immediately." As the Prometheus prepared for its perilous mission, another crisis loomed on the horizon. Sub-Commander Zexlor's holographic form flickered to life in the command center, his scale features tight with worry. "Admiral Steele, we have a situation on New Draconium," Zexlor reported. "A faction of traditionalists, led by Warlord Krovnox, is advocating for a return to our old ways. They're rejecting further cooperation with other species. I fear we may be heading toward civil conflict." Steele frowned, recognizing the delicate nature of the situation. He turned to Commander Jack Harper, who had been overseeing refugee resettlement efforts. "Commander, I need you on New Draconium," Steele said. "Your experience with both human and Draconis cultures makes you uniquely qualified to handle this. Work with Zexlor and see if you can find a compromise with Krovnox." Harper nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. "I'll do my best, sir." As Harper departed for New Draconium, Steele received a transmission from Dr. Xander Voss, the lead scientist studying the neurologically enhanced Draconis. "Admiral, we've had a breakthrough," Voss announced, his eyes bright with excitement. "We've developed a procedure we're calling cognitive harmonization. It safely replicates the effects of the precursor neural interfaces. We're ready for our first human trial." Steele listened intently as Voss explained the potential benefits and risks of the procedure. After careful consideration, he gave his approval for a volunteer team to undergo the process. Days later, as Steele reviewed reports from across the sector, he received word that the cognitive harmonization had been successful. The enhanced team was making rapid progress in deciphering the remaining precursor data crystals. Just as hope began to rise, a priority alert sounded throughout the command center. The autonomous probe ships at the sector's edge had detected increased activity from the remnants of the Void Collective. Steele's eyes narrowed as he studied the incoming data. The energy signatures were growing stronger and more frequent. He turned to his staff, his voice calm but urgent. "Accelerate Project Phoenix," he ordered. "We need those new defensive technologies operational as soon as possible." As the Alliance raced against time to prepare for a potential second Void Collective incursion, Grand Designer Zilvax approached Steele with a daring proposal. "Admiral," Zilvax began, his crystalline form pulsing with energy, "we believe we can create a stable wormhole connecting the Draconis sector to the rest of the galaxy. It would bypass the subspace anomalies, allowing for safe travel and communication." Steele listened intently as Zilvax outlined the plan. The risks were significant, but the potential benefits were impossible to ignore. After consulting with the DSBG, Steele gave the green light for Operation Lifeline to begin. As construction of the massive wormhole generators commenced, Ambassador Griffin burst into the command center, his face pale. "Admiral," Griffin said, his voice trembling slightly, "we've completed our analysis of the ancient data cores and precursor crystals. You need to see this immediately." Steele followed Griffin to a secure briefing room, unaware that the information he was about to receive would change everything they thought they knew about the Void Collective and the very nature of their struggle. "Universe." Steele leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the holographic display as Griffin began his presentation. "Admiral, what we've uncovered is staggering," Griffin said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Void Collective isn't just an external threat. It's a transdimensional entity that's been shaping galactic events for millions of years. Steele's brow furrowed as he absorbed the information. "Go on," he urged. Griffin continued, gesturing to the complex data streams flowing across the display. "According to the precursor records, there's a way to counter the void collective influence. They call it the Great Synthesis, a process that could fundamentally alter the fabric of our reality and potentially eliminate the collective's threat." Before Steele could respond, an urgent message flashed across his comm device. It was from Captain Ethan Cole aboard the Prometheus. "Admiral," Cole's voice crackled through the speaker, "we've made a significant discovery in the debris field of the former Draconis homeworld. There's an intact precursor artifact embedded in a cluster of Draconis prime elements. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Steele's pulse quickened. "Can you retrieve it safely?" "Affirmative. Sir, we're preparing to use our tractor beam technology now." "Proceed with caution, Captain. I want that artifact brought to Hope's Landing immediately for study." As Steele ended the transmission, he turned back to Griffin. "It seems the universe has a sense of timing. Brief the DSBG on your findings and this great synthesis. We need to consider all our options." Over the next few days, tension mounted as the Draconis Sector Provisional Government debated the merits and risks of attempting the Great Synthesis. Steele found himself at the center of heated discussions, presenting his proposal for this unprecedented undertaking. During a particularly intense session, Steele addressed the gathered representatives. "I understand the concerns many of you have expressed. The risks are significant, but so are the potential rewards. We must consider the long-term survival of not just our sector, but potentially the entire galaxy." As the deliberations continued, Steele initiated a series of preparatory measures. He dispatched teams to survey potential energy focal points across the sector, each aligned with a specific subspace frequency as determined by the decoded precursor data. Meanwhile, aboard the Prometheus, Captain Cole and his crew carefully extracted the precursor artifact from the debris field. As they maneuvered the crystalline structure into the ship's cargo hold, the artifact emitted a pulse of energy that reverberated through the vessel systems. "Status report," Cole barked, steadying himself against a nearby console. His chief engineer's voice came through the intercom, tinged with awe and concern. "Captain, the artifact is interacting with our systems. We're seeing power fluctuations and data surges across all decks." Cole immediately opened a channel to Hope's Landing. "Admiral Steele, we've secured the artifact, but it's having some unexpected effects on the Prometheus. Request immediate assistance from Dr. Voss and his team." Steele didn't hesitate. "Understood, Captain. Dr. Voss and his cognitively harmonized scientists are en route to your position now." As the Prometheus made its way back to Hope's Landing, Commander Jack Harper's diplomatic efforts on New Draconium reached a critical juncture. In a tense meeting with Warlord Krovnox, Harper presented his final proposal. "Warlord," Harper began, his voice steady and respectful, "we understand your desire to preserve Draconis traditions. We're prepared to offer an autonomous zone on New Draconium where your people can maintain their customs, in exchange for your support of the Alliance's efforts, including the Great Synthesis." Krovnox's scaled features remained impassive for a long moment before he finally nodded. "Your offer is acceptable, Commander. We will support your alliance, but we will not forget who we are." As Harper relayed the news of the compromise to Steele, Dr. Voss and his team arrived at the Prometheus. Their examination of the precursor artifact revealed its true nature, a quantum computer of unparalleled sophistication. Voss's eyes gleamed with excitement as he reported to Steele. "Admiral, this device contains schematics for initiating the Great Synthesis. It's the key we've been looking for." Steele nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Excellent work, Doctor. I want you to work with Grand Designer Zilvax to integrate this technology into Operation Lifeline. We need every advantage we can get. As preparations for both the Great Synthesis and Operation Lifeline accelerated, long-range sensors detected a massive energy surge at the sector's edge. The remnants of the Void Collective were coalescing into a singular, monstrous entity. Steele watched the sensor readings with growing concern. He turned to his communications officer. "Send out an emergency call to all DSBG representatives. It's time to make our decision." The fate of the Draconis sector hung in the balance as the Alliance leaders gathered for the crucial vote. Steele stood before them, his voice resolute. "We face an unprecedented threat," he began, gesturing to the ominous sensor readings displayed behind him. "The choice before us is clear. Attempt the Great Synthesis, with all its potential risks and rewards, or focus solely on conventional defense and the completion of Operation Lifeline. The decision we make here today will shape the future of our sector and possibly the entire galaxy." As the votes were tallied, Steele felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The final count revealed a narrow margin in favor of attempting the Great Synthesis. Without wasting a moment, Steele sprang into action. "Initiate Project Phoenix. I want the HDS Vanguard and every available ship at our defensive perimeter. Captain Cole, deploy the Prometheus to the Energy Collection Array. That will be our primary control center for the Great Synthesis." As the Allied forces scrambled to their positions, Steele boarded a fast transport bound for the Energy Collection Array. He watched through the viewport as the newly launched HDS Vanguard led a fleet of ships to the sector's edge, forming a last line of defense against the encroaching Void Collective entity. The transport shuddered as it accelerated to full speed, carrying Steele toward what he knew would be the most critical moment of his career, and perhaps the most pivotal event in galactic history. As the Energy Collection Array grew larger in the viewport, Steele steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that the true test of humanity's purpose and ingenuity was about to begin. As the transport docked with the Energy Collection Array, Steele felt a surge of anticipation coursing through him. The massive structure loomed before him, its intricate network of conduits and energy collectors pulsing with an otherworldly blue glow. At the center, the precursor artifact stood like a crystalline heart, its facets refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. As Steele stepped onto the station, Dr. Xander Voss approached, his eyes alight with excitement and trepidation. "Admiral, welcome aboard. We're ready to begin the Great Synthesis." Steele nodded, his gaze sweeping across the bustling control center. "Walk me through the final preparations, Doctor." As they strode through the array's corridors, Voss explained the intricacies of the operation. "We've successfully integrated the quantum computer from the precursor artifact into our systems. It's now the central hub for coordinating the Great Synthesis across the entire sector." They reached the main control room, where holographic displays showed a network of glowing points spread across a map of the Draconis sector. Voss gestured to the map. "These are our energy focal points, strategically placed on uninhabited planets and space stations. They'll act as amplifiers for the synthesis wave." Steele's comm device chirped, and he answered to find Fleet Commander Victor Volkov's grim face on the screen. "Admiral, we've engaged the Void Collective entity at the sector's edge. Our new defense systems are holding against its outer tendrils, but the core remains impenetrable. We can buy you time, but not much." "Understood, Commander. Hold the line as long as you can," Steele replied, his mind focused. Another transmission came through, this time from New Draconium. Sub-Commander Zexlor's scaled face appeared alongside Warlord Krovnox. "Admiral," Zexlor reported, "we've activated the planetary shield generator. The refugee population is secure for now." As Steele acknowledged their report, Dr. Voss called for his attention. "Admiral, we're ready to initiate the Great Synthesis." "Your orders, sir." Steele took a deep breath. acutely aware of the weight of this moment. Proceed, Doctor. Initiate the great synthesis. Voss nodded and turned to his team of cognitively harmonized scientists. Begin the activation sequence. Channel power from the Draconis Prime elements through the precursor artifact. The room hummed with energy as the process began. The quantum computer sprang to life, processing vast amounts of data and coordinating the energy flow to the focal points across the sector. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Captain Ethan Cole's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, we're experiencing severe structural strain on the array. The energy requirements are off the charts. Use emergency force fields and the new Draconis Prime alloys to reinforce key sections, Steele ordered, his mind racing to address the mounting complications. As Cole and his crew worked to stabilize the array, another crisis emerged. Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram materialized in the control room, his crystalline form flickering with urgency. Admiral, the wormhole generators are experiencing dangerous fluctuations. The quantum entanglement with the precursor artifact is creating a feedback loop that threatens to destabilize the entire network. Steele's brow furrowed. Can you compensate for the distortions, Zilvax? We're attempting to, Admiral. My team of quantum architects is working to maintain the link to the rest of the galaxy, but it's proving challenging. As if on cue, Commander Volkov's voice cut through the chaos. Admiral, the Void Collective is accelerating its advance. We're suffering heavy losses. I'm implementing a fighting retreat to buy you more time. Steele clenched his fists, feeling the situation spiraling out of control. Hold on, Commander. We just need a little more time. Just then, a massive shockwave of energy erupted from the array, rippling across the sector. The focal points lit up on the holographic map, creating a complex network of subspace distortions. Admiral, Dr. Voss called out, his eyes wide. The synthesis wave is having unforeseen effects across the sector. We're receiving reports of rapid terraforming on some planets, while others are experiencing severe gravitational anomalies. As Steele processed this information, Captain Cole's voice came through again. Sir, you won't believe this. The Draconis Prime elements are reacting to the wave in ways we never anticipated. They're exhibiting properties of programmable matter, reshaping themselves in response to the energy patterns. Steele leaned forward, his mind racing with the implications. Can we use this to our advantage, Captain? Affirmative. Sir, we're already using it to stabilize the array's structure. As the synthesis wave expanded further, it reached the debris field of the former Draconis homeworld. The scattered remnants began to coalesce into a swirling mass of matter and energy. Dr. Voss gasped, pointing to the phenomenon on the holographic display. Admiral, look at that. The energy is interacting with the remnants of the Draconis homeworld. This could be significant. Before Steele could respond, Commander Volkov's urgent voice cut through. Admiral, the Void Collective entity is showing signs of destabilization. Parts of it are dissolving, but the core remains intact and is still advancing. Steele's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the holographic representations of the unfolding events. The great synthesis was in full effect, its consequences rippling across the sector in ways they had never anticipated. As the energy wave continued to spread, Steele knew that the true test of their efforts was only beginning. Keep monitoring all sectors, he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. We need to understand the full scope of these changes and adapt our strategy accordingly. As the control room buzzed with activity, Steele turned his attention to the approaching core of the Void Collective entity. The battle was just the beginning, and the fate of the Draconis sector hung in the balance. As the control room buzzed with activity, Steele turned his attention to the approaching core of the Void Collective entity. The battle was just the beginning, and the fate of the Draconis sector hung in the balance. Suddenly, A cascade of reports flooded the command center's displays. The great synthesis wave was expanding rapidly across the sector, its effects more profound and unpredictable than anyone had anticipated. "Admiral," Dr. Voss called out, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. "The wave is interacting with various celestial bodies in ways we never imagined." Steele leaned forward, studying the holographic displays. "Show me, Doctor." As they watched, the swirling mass of matter and energy that had formed from the debris of the former Draconis homeworld began to take on a more defined shape. The coalescing material compressed and solidified, forming a compact planetoid roughly one-third the size of the original Draconis homeworld. "Incredible," Steele breathed, his mind racing with the implications. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Dr. Voss's fingers danced across his datapad. "The planetoid appears to be highly concentrated with Draconis prime elements. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. I suggest we designate it New Draconis for now." Before Steele could respond, Commander Volkov's voice crackled through the comm system. "Admiral, we're seeing changes at the battle line. The Void collective entity. It's fragmenting." The holographic display shifted to show the sector's edge. The defensive fleet, led by the HDS Vanguard, continued its desperate struggle against the encroaching entity. As the synthesis wave reached the battlefield, portions of the Void collective began to dissolve and disperse. Steele's momentary elation was short-lived as Volkov continued his report. "The outer layers are breaking apart, sir, but the core is adapting. It's becoming denser, more focused. We're adjusting our tactics, but this new formation is proving difficult to counter." As Steele processed this information, another alert demanded his attention. The comm channel opened to reveal Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox on New Draconium. "Admiral," Zexlor reported, his scaled features taut with tension, "the planetary shield generator just experienced a massive power surge as the wave passed through. The shield has expanded and strengthened beyond our wildest expectations." Krovnox nodded, a rare look of approval on his face. "This enhanced barrier could provide long-term protection for our people's Steele. Perhaps your great synthesis has some merit after all." Before Steele could respond, Captain Cole's voice cut through the chatter. "Admiral, we have a situation on the array. The structural integrity is failing under the energy output." Steele's mind raced. "Use the Draconis prime elements, Captain. We've seen how they respond to the wave. Initiate an emergency reinforcement protocol." "Understood, sir," Cole replied. The view screen showed the Prometheus crew working feverishly as the programmable matter reshaped itself, forming new support structures and energy conduits throughout the array. Amidst the chaos, Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram materialized in the control room. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough with the wormhole network. By synchronizing the quantum fluctuations with the synthesis wave's energy patterns, we've created stable corridors connecting us to key points in the galaxy." Steele nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Excellent work, Zilvax. At least we won't be completely cut off, regardless of how this plays out." Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light caught everyone's attention. The holographic display zoomed in on the precursor space station, where pulses of highly focused energy were being emitted into space. "What's happening there?" Steele demanded. Dr. Voss quickly analyzed the incoming data. "It appears Commander Harper has rerouted power through the station's ancient weapon systems to stabilize the power core. It's acting as an energy sink, but it's also created an unintended beacon visible across the sector." As they watched, the subspace distortions created by the Great Synthesis began to form patterns across the sector, resembling a vast, three-dimensional web. "DR." Voss's eyes widened as he studied the readings. "Admiral," he said, his voice filled with wonder, This web-like structure is altering the fundamental properties of space-time within the Draconis sector. The implications are staggering. Steele's mind raced with possibilities. Focus all available sensors on mapping and analyzing this subspace web. Understanding and controlling it could be our key to neutralizing the Void Collective and stabilizing the sector. As the crew carried out his orders, Steele's attention was drawn back to the battle at the sector's edge. The core of the Void Collective entity had changed its tactics, concentrating its mass into a dense, spear-like formation that partially resisted the effects of the synthesis wave. "It's driving towards the heart of the sector," Volkov reported, his voice grim. "We're adjusting our defensive lines, but this new configuration is unlike anything we've faced before." Steele's teeth gritted as he surveyed the unfolding chaos across the sector. The great synthesis had altered the balance of power in ways they had never anticipated, creating both new threats and potential advantages. With the very fabric of space-time in flux and the adapted Void Collective bearing down on them, he knew their next moves would be crucial. "Dr. Voss," Steele said, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure, "I need options. How can we use these new developments to our advantage?" As Voss and his team began analyzing the data, Steele turned his attention to the tactical display. The battle for the Draconis sector was entering a new phase, and he was determined to use every tool at his disposal to ensure humanity's survival. Survival. Steele's mind raced as he processed the influx of information, seeking a way to turn the chaotic situation to their advantage. "Dr. Voss," Steele said, his voice cutting through the din of the command center, "I need you to focus on that subspace web. It could be the key to everything." Voss nodded, his fingers flying across his datapad. "Already on it, Admiral. I'm redeploying our research vessels and sensor arrays to create a network of observation posts throughout the sector. We'll map every fluctuation and distortion in that web." As Voss coordinated the scientific efforts, Steele turned to his tactical display. "Commander Volkov, what's the status of the Void Collective entity?" Volkov's grim face appeared on the screen. "It's adapted to a concentrated spear-like formation. Sir, we're adjusting our defensive lines, but it's breaching our outer defenses. Permission to implement a new tactic?" "Granted. What do you have in mind?" "We'll use the Vanguard's precursor-inspired weapons to target specific points along the entity's length. If we can disrupt its cohesion, we might slow its advance." Steele nodded. "Do it, and keep me updated on its effectiveness." As Volkov's image faded, another alert demanded Steele's attention. Dr. Emil Kowalski's face appeared on the main screen, the newly formed planetoid of New Draconis visible behind him. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough," Kowalski reported, excitement evident in his voice. "The high concentration of Draconis prime elements here makes this planetoid a powerhouse for energy production and matter manipulation. We're setting up experiments to harness these properties for defensive purposes." "Excellent work, Doctor," Steele replied. "Coordinate with Dr. Voss. Your research could be crucial in our efforts to manipulate the subspace web." As Kowalski signed off, Steele received another incoming transmission. This time, it was Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox from New Draconium. "Admiral," Zexlor began, his scaled features set in persistence, "Krovnox and I have set aside our differences. We're mobilizing our entire planet to construct a massive energy projector. It will channel our enhanced planetary shield's power into a focused beam." Krovnox nodded, a rare look of approval on his face. If successful, this weapon could pierce the Void Collective's defenses. "We'll need time to complete it, but it could turn the tide of this battle." "Understood," Steele replied. "Keep me informed of your progress. We'll factor your weapon into our overall strategy." As the Draconis leader signed off, Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram materialized in the control room. "Admiral, I've made a critical discovery." The stable wormhole network created during the Great Synthesis can be used for large-scale evacuations. I'm initiating Operation Exodus to prepare safe zones outside the Draconis sector, should the worst come to pass. Steele nodded grimly. A necessary precaution, Zilvax. Coordinate with our allies to ensure smooth implementation. As the Grand Designer's hologram faded, Steele turned his attention back to the energy collection array. Captain Cole, what's your status? Cole's voice came through, strained but determined. We've stabilized the array, Admiral. Awaiting your orders. Steele's eyes narrowed as he formulated his next move. I want you to use the array's power output to weave localized distortions into the subspace web. Create traps and barriers to impede the Void Collective's advance. Understood. Sir, will get right on it. As Cole signed off, another transmission came through. This time, it was Commander Jack Harper from the Precursor Space Station. Admiral, we've stumbled onto something unexpected, Harper reported. The energy pulses we're emitting are resonating with the subspace web, creating expanding zones of altered space-time. We're working to refine this process. If we can control it, we might be able to corral and contain portions of the Void Collective entity. Steele leaned forward, his mind racing with possibilities. Excellent work, Harper. Keep refining that process. It could be a game changer. As Harper's transmission ended, Steele turned to address his command staff. We have multiple strategies in play, but we need to coordinate them into a cohesive plan. Dr. Voss, I want you working with Kowalski on New Draconis. See if you can develop a method to interact with the subspace web using modified quantum architect technology. Voss nodded, already reaching for his communicator. On it, Admiral. Steele continued, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. We're going to create what I'm calling a synthesis nexus. We'll use the subspace web manipulation, the energy projection from New Draconium, and the resonance pulses from the Precursor Station to create a focal point where we can trap and potentially neutralize the Void Collective entity. As his staff began to coordinate the various elements of this new strategy, alarms blared throughout the command center. Dr. Voss's eyes widened as he studied the incoming data. Admiral, he called out, his voice urgent. We have a new problem. The intense energy manipulations and space-time distortions are affecting the Draconis prime elements throughout the sector. They're showing signs of instability. If this continues, it could trigger a chain reaction that would devastate our remaining habitable worlds. Steele's heart made as he processed this new threat. The battle for the Draconis sector had entered a new phase, with the very elements that powered their defenses now threatening to turn against them. As he surveyed the holographic displays showing the advancing Void Collective entity and the spreading web of subspace distortions, Steele knew that their next moves would determine not just the fate of the sector, but potentially the future of the entire galaxy. Galaxy. Steele's lips pursed as he processed the gravity of the situation. The instability of the Draconis prime elements added a new layer of complexity to an already chaotic battlefield. Dr. Voss, prioritize stabilizing those elements, Steele ordered, his voice tight with tension. We can't afford to lose our remaining habitable worlds. As Voss and his team scrambled to address this new threat, Steele turned his attention to the holographic display of the sector. The advancing Void Collective entity loomed large, its spear-like formation cutting through their outer defenses with alarming speed. It's time to implement our strategy, Steele announced, his voice carrying across the command center. Initiate the Synthesis Nexus Protocol. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as Steele's order was relayed across the sector. On the main view screen, multiple feeds showcased the Allied forces mobilizing with unprecedented coordination. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on one of the screens. Admiral, the energy collection array is ready. We're beginning to emit calibrated pulses into the subspace web, Steele watched as the array came to life, sending out waves of energy that interacted with the web-like structure spanning the sector. The pulses created a series of interlocking distortions, forming the foundation of the synthesis nexus. Another feed showed the surface of New Draconium, where Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox stood side by side, overseeing the final preparations of their massive energy projector. The device hummed to life, drawing power from the enhanced planetary shield. "Energy projector online, Admiral," Zexlor reported. "Firing now." A brilliant beam of energy erupted from the projector, arcing through space towards the predetermined coordinates of the synthesis nexus. The command center crew watched in awe as the beam cut across the sector, its power visibly warping the fabric of space-time. Commander Jack Harper's transmission came through Nex, his face illuminated by the eerie glow of the precursor space station's control panels. "Initiating resonance pulse sequence, Admiral. Stand by." The station's repurposed weapon systems fired in a carefully orchestrated pattern, sending waves of energy that intertwined with the subspace web. These pulses created expanding zones of altered space-time that began to converge with the distortions generated by the energy collection array. As these elements came together, Steele received an urgent communication from Dr. Emil Kowalski on New Draconis. The scientist's eyes were wide with excitement as he spoke. "Admiral, we've done it. We've found a way to create concentrated nodes of Draconis prime elements. They're programmed to implode when exposed to specific energy frequencies. We're loading them onto unmanned drones now." Steele nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Excellent work, Doctor. Launch those drones immediately. We'll need them for the final phase." As the drones launched from New Draconis, their swarm visible even from Steele's vantage point, Commander Viktor Volkov's face appeared on the main screen. The tactical officer's expression was grim, but determined. "Admiral, the Void collective entity has broken through our outer defenses. Permission to implement our new tactic?" "Granted, Commander. Proceed with the spherical formation." Steele watched as Volkov coordinated the remaining ships, forming them into a spherical cage around the advancing entity. The vessels fired their precursor-inspired weapons in unison, creating a lattice of energy that began to herd the collective towards the forming synthesis nexus. As the various elements of their plan converged, the synthesis nexus took shape before their eyes. It was a swirling vortex of energy and distorted space-time, visible even to the naked eye. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "All non-essential personnel, prepare for potential evacuation," Steele ordered, his voice echoing through the sector-wide communication channels. "Operation Lifeline wormholes are on standby." The Void collective entity approached the synthesis nexus, its outer layers beginning to peel away and dissipate into the surrounding space. However, its core remained intact, pushing forward with what seemed like intelligent purpose. Suddenly, Dr. Voss's voice cut through the command center chatter. "Admiral, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the collective's core. It's resonating with the precursor artifacts scattered throughout the sector." Steele's mind raced as he processed this new information. "It's seeking the artifacts," he realized aloud. "We need to secure them immediately." He quickly opened a channel to Ambassador Richard Griffin. "Ambassador, I need you to assemble a team. Gather all known precursor artifacts in the sector and transport them to a secure location outside the synthesis nexus. Move fast." As Griffin acknowledged the order, Steele turned his attention back to the unfolding battle. The Void collective entity had entered the outer edges of the synthesis nexus, its progress slowing as it struggled against the powerful forces surrounding it. "Captain Cole, initiate the final phase," Steele commanded. On the interface, Steele watched as the drone fleet carrying the Draconis Prime nodes converged on the trapped entity. The drones wove through the energy storm, releasing their payloads at precise coordinates within the synthesis nexus. As Dr. Voss prepared to trigger the controlled implosion of the nodes, a massive surge of energy erupted from the entity's core. The unexpected burst interacted with the synthesis nexus in ways no one had anticipated, sending ripples of distortion spreading rapidly across the sector. Alarms blared throughout the command center as sensors overloaded with data. Steele gripped the edge of his console, his knuckles tightening as he watched the situation spiral into unknown territory. "All forces, brace for impact," Steele shouted into the comm channel. "Prepare for multiple contingencies. This is not a drill." As the waves of distortion swept outward, Steele knew that the next few moments would determine the fate of not just the Draconis sector, but possibly the entire galaxy. The gambit they had taken against the Void Collective was reaching its climax, and the outcome remained perilously uncertain. Uncertain, the energy wave slammed into the command center, throwing Steele off balance. He gripped his console tightly as alarms blared and screens flickered. "Status report," Steele barked, steadying himself. Dr. Voss's fingers flew across his interface. "Admiral, the subspace web is destabilizing rapidly. Our communications and sensors are going haywire." Steele's mind raced. They needed to act fast or risk losing control of the entire operation. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, engage subspace stabilizers immediately," he ordered. "Create a network of stable zones. Now!" Across the sector, Allied vessels activated their newly installed devices. Bubbles of calm space bloomed amidst the chaos, providing much-needed stability. On the main view screen, the energy collection array groaned under immense stress. Captain Cole's face appeared, distorted by static. "Admiral, we're losing structural integrity," Cole shouted over the noise of buckling metal. "The Draconis prime elements are reacting to the distortions. We need to vent excess energy, or we'll tear apart." Steele nodded grimly. "Do it, Captain. Target uninhabited areas of space." Cole's image vanished as he carried out the order. Moments later, brilliant streams of energy erupted from the array, temporarily relieving the pressure on its systems. A new alert caught Steele's attention. Commander Harper's transmission came through, his voice tense. "Station's power levels are critical, Admiral. We're rerouting through auxiliaries and converting the excess into a containment beam." Steele watched as a concentrated ray of energy shot from the precursor station, adding another layer to the synthesis nexus's swirling vortex. On New Draconium, alarms blared as the massive energy projector began to overload. Subcommander Zexlor's scales glistened with sweat as he and Warlord Krovnox manually adjusted power regulators. "Steady, Warlord," Zexlor hissed. "We must synchronize with the web's fluctuations." Krovnox grunted in acknowledgement, his massive claws delicately manipulating controls. The projector's beam pulsed rhythmically, matching the subspace web's chaotic dance. Dr. Kowalski's excited voice cut through the command center's din. "Admiral, we're experiencing gravity anomalies on New Draconis. The Draconis prime elements are reacting to the disturbances." Steele leaned forward. "Can you use it to our advantage, Doctor?" "Already on it," Kowalski replied. "We're creating gravity wells around the Nexus. It should help contain the entity further." Steele nodded, then turned his attention to Ambassador Griffin's team. "Griffin, report on the artifact retrieval." The ambassador's face was grim. "Sir, the artifacts are activating. They're resonating with the entity. We have no choice but to jettison the most reactive ones into the Nexus." "Do it," Steele ordered, his jaw clenching. As Griffin's team carried out their task, Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram flickered into view. "Admiral, the Operation Lifeline wormholes are destabilizing. We're recalibrating now, but evacuation options are limited." Steele's heart sank, but he pushed the feeling aside. They had to focus on containing the threat. Commander Volkov's voice crackled through the calm. Admiral, the entity's core is changing. It's pulsing in a new pattern. We're adjusting our energy cage to match. Dr. Voss suddenly straightened, his eyes wide. Sir, I've made a breakthrough. The entity is trying to create a dimensional bridge using the energy surges and artifacts. We can disrupt it with the Draconis prime nodes. Steele nodded. Make it happen, Doctor. As Voss reprogrammed the nodes, Steele surveyed the chaotic battlefield. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. They needed a decisive move. Attention all forces, Steele announced, his voice carrying across all channels. Initiate Protocol Omega. Channel all available energy into a single pulse directed at the Nexus core. This is our final play. As the Allied forces prepared for this ultimate gambit, the Void collective entity's core suddenly expanded. The subspace web around the synthesis nexus warped and twisted, creating visible tears in space-time. Steele watched, his breath caught in his throat, as reality itself seemed to hang in the balance. The next few moments would determine the fate of not just the Draconis sector, but potentially the very nature of existence in this part of the galaxy. All units, stand ready, Steele commanded, his voice steady despite the stakes. Prepare to fire on my mark. The command center fell silent, the tension palpable as everyone waited for Steele's order. The fate of humanity and its allies rested on what happened next. In the balance, the fate of humanity and its allies rested on what happened next. Fire! Steele's command echoed through the comm channels. In an instant, the combined might of the Allied forces surged towards the heart of the synthesis nexus. The massive energy pulse, a blinding torrent of power, streaked across space. As it struck the trapped Void collective entity, the effect was immediate and violent. The entity's form contracted, its core pulsating at an ever-increasing frequency. The subspace web surrounding the nexus warped and twisted, fractures appearing in the very fabric of space-time. Steele's eyes widened as he watched the unfolding chaos on the main view screen. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the command center. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen's voice cut through the din. Admiral, we're losing systems across the sector. The energy discharge is overloading our equipment. Steele's mind raced. They couldn't lose control now, not when they were so close. Activate all backup power sources, he ordered. Reroute essential communications through the hardened quantum relays. We need to maintain our network at all costs. As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Steele's attention snapped to a new transmission. Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on screen, his features illuminated by flashing red warning lights. Admiral, the array is breaking apart. Cole shouted over the sound of groaning metal. We're initiating emergency containment protocols, but we need to offload this excess energy now. Steele nodded grimly. Deploy the energy absorption drones, Captain. Collect and redirect as much power as you can. As Cole's image winked out, Commander Jack Harper's transmission came through from the precursor space station. The feed was distorted, Harper's face barely visible through the static. Station's power core is critical, Harper reported, his voice strained. We have no choice. We're jettisoning the core into the Nexus. Before Steele could respond, the feed cut out. Moments later, a brilliant explosion bloomed within the synthesis Nexus. The resulting shockwave rippled through the subspace web, momentarily destabilizing the entity's confinement. Sir, New Draconium's energy projector is offline. Subcommander Zexlor's voice crackled through the comm. We're implementing manual overrides to restore partial functionality. Steele sharpened his eyes, watching as the situation spiraled further out of control. The Allied forces' carefully laid plans were unraveling in the face of the raw power they had unleashed. A new alert caught his attention. Dr. Emil Kowalski's excited voice filled the command center. Admiral, the planetoid's shifting. The Draconis prime elements are resonating with the energy pulse. It's creating a gravitational anomaly. Steele leaned forward, his mind racing to find a way to turn this unexpected development to their advantage. Can you use it, Doctor? Find a way to direct those gravitational forces against the entity. Already on it, sir, Kowalski replied. We're recalculating now. This could be the key to compressing the entity further. As Kowalski's team worked, Ambassador Richard Griffin's transmission came through. Admiral, the precursor artifacts are activating. They're emitting some kind of coherent energy pattern in response to the nexus. Dr. Xander Voss's voice chimed in, excitement evident in his tone. We can use this, sir. If we integrate these energy patterns into our containment strategy, we might be able to stabilize the subspace web. Steele nodded, hope flickering in his chest. Make it happen, Doctor. Griffin, coordinate with Voss's team. Use those artifacts as focal points. The command center shook as another energy wave washed over them. Commander Viktor Volkov's grim face appeared on screen, smoke visible behind him. Vanguard's taken heavy damage, Admiral, Volkov reported. We're evacuating non-essential personnel, but we'll maintain our position in the energy cage. Before Steele could respond, Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram flickered into view. Admiral, we have a critical situation. The energy discharge has created new unstable wormholes throughout the sector. We're working to map them now, but our evacuation routes are compromised. Steele's mind raced, processing the flood of information. They were walking a knife's edge, each new development threatening to tip the balance. But amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. Dr. Voss's voice cut through the cacophony of alerts and reports. Admiral, the entity. It's fragmenting internally. Its core consciousness is breaking apart under the pressure. We may have a chance to neutralize it permanently. Steele's eyes narrowed, a plan forming in his mind. This was their opportunity, perhaps their only chance to end the threat once and for all. He straightened, his voice carrying the weight of command as he addressed his forces. All units, this is Admiral Steele. Redirect all available power to create a focused energy beam. We're going to target the weakening points within the entity's core. This is our chance to shatter its cohesion and render it inert. Stand by for coordinates. As the Allied forces scrambled to comply, Steele watched the main view screen intently. The void collective entity writhed within the synthesis nexus, its form distorting under the immense pressures it faced. They had pushed it to its breaking point, and now it was time to deliver the final blow. Energy beam charged and ready, Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Chin reported. Steele took a deep breath, acutely aware that the next few moments would determine the outcome of their daring plan. Target locked. Fire. The focused energy beam lanced out, a concentrated burst of raw power that cut through the chaos of the synthesis nexus. It struck the void collective entity's core with devastating precision, the impact visible even from Steele's vantage point. For a moment, everything seemed to pause, the universe holding its breath. Then, with a silent explosion of light, the entity's form began to collapse in on itself. Steele leaned forward, his fingers tightening as he gripped the edge of his console. They had struck a decisive blow, but the battle was nowhere near the end. As the void collective entity imploded, it released a final, massive burst of energy that radiated outward through the destabilized subspace web. All forces brace for impact. Steele shouted into the comm channel as the energy wave swept towards them. The command center shook violently, screens flickering as the wave passed through. Steele held on, his mind already racing to assess the damage and plan their next move. The void collective entity was defeated, but the consequences of their victory remained to be seen. The shockwave rippled through the command center, rattling consoles, and sending loose objects flying. As the initial tremor subsided, Steele unclenched his fingers from the edge of his station and looked up at the main view screen. The synthesis nexus pulsed with residual energy, its swirling vortex now punctuated by flashes of brilliant light. The void collective entity was gone, but in its wake, a new chaos was unfolding. Status report. Steele barked, his eyes scanning the various readouts before him. Lieutenant Commander Chen's fingers flew across her console. Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals and anomalous readings from across the sector. The energy wave is causing unexpected effects. Steele's comm channel crackled to life, and Captain Ethan Cole's face appeared on screen. The man's eyes were wide with a mix of shock and awe. Admiral, you're not going to believe this, Cole said, his voice filled with wonder. The array. It's repairing itself. Steele leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Explain, Captain. The Draconis prime elements, Cole continued, gesturing behind him where Steele could see the array's structure shifting and reforming. They're reconfiguring into some kind of self-repairing lattice. It's stabilizing the entire facility. Before Steele could respond, another transmission cut in. Commander Volkov's face appeared, his usual stoic expression replaced by one of amazement. Admiral, the Vanguard is regenerating, Volkov reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. The energy wave has triggered some kind of rapid repair process. We're using nearby debris as raw materials to restore our systems. Steele's mind raced as he processed this information. The defeat of the Void collective entity had clearly set off a chain reaction of unprecedented proportions. Sir, Chun called out, I'm receiving a report from New Draconium. The energy projector has come back online with enhanced capabilities. On cue, Sub-Commander Zexlor's scale face appeared on screen. Admiral Steele, the projector is operational again, but it's different. It's emitting a focus beam that's repairing our planetary infrastructure. Steele nodded, trying to maintain his composure in the face of these rapid developments. What about New Draconis? As if on cue, Dr. Kowalski's excited voice filled the command center. Admiral, you won't believe what we're seeing here. The Draconis prime elements in the planetoid's core are forming crystal-like structures. They're emitting energy pulses that are clearing space debris and radiation. The reports continue to flood in. Commander Harper's team on the precursor station reported dormant systems coming online, revealing hidden chambers and advanced technologies. Ambassador Griffin's artifacts began interfacing with nearby systems, uploading vast amounts of data about precursor technology and the Void Collective. Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram flickered into view. Admiral, the unstable wormholes are stabilizing. The energy wave has had a harmonizing effect on the subspace distortions. We now have a more extensive and robust wormhole network throughout the sector. Steele took a deep breath, his mind working overtime to process the flood of information. The energy wave had triggered a rapid technological evolution across the entire Draconis sector, integrating and enhancing the various alien technologies they had employed in their desperate battle. Chun, Steele said, his voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around them. Send out a sector-wide alert. I want all available scientific and engineering personnel to begin studying these phenomena immediately. He paused, considering his next move. And get me a secure line to Allied leadership outside the Draconis sector. They need to be briefed on what's happening here. As Chun carried out his orders, Steele turned his attention back to the main view screen. The synthesis nexus, once a focal point of destruction, now pulsed with new energy, a visual representation of the transformation sweeping across the sector. Admiral, Dr. Voss's voice cut through the din of the command center. I've been analyzing the data from the various reports. It appears that the residual energy from the Void Collective, combined with the precursor technology and Draconis Prime elements, has created a unique technological synergy. The implications are staggering. Steele nodded, his mind already racing ahead to the potential consequences of these developments. Assemble a specialized task force, Doctor. I want our top minds working on understanding and harnessing these new technologies. As the command center buzzed with activity, Steele stood at his station, his eyes fixed on the swirling energies displayed on the main view screen. They had won their battle against the Void Collective, but it was clear that the war for the future of the Draconis sector, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was just beginning. The Admiral's fingers tightened on the edge of his console. The coming days and weeks would be crucial in determining how they would navigate this new era of unprecedented technological advancement. And as the leader of the Allied forces, Steele knew that the weight of that responsibility rested squarely on his shoulders. With a deep breath, he turned to address the bustling command center. "Listen up, everyone." Steele's voice cut through the chatter, silencing the room. "We've just witnessed an unprecedented technological evolution. Our next steps will determine the future of not just the Draconis sector, but potentially the entire galaxy." He paused, his eyes sweeping across the faces of his team. "I'm initiating Operation Phoenix, effective immediately. Our mission is to harness and integrate these new technologies across the sector." Steele's fingers danced across his console, bringing up a holographic display of Hope's Landing. "We're establishing a central research facility here. I want our top scientists and engineers from all allied species working together to study and develop applications for these transformed technologies." Dr. Xander Voss stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Admiral, I'd like to lead a team to investigate the self-repairing framework of the energy collection array. The potential applications are staggering." Steele nodded. "Granted, Doctor. Get your team together and head out immediately." As Voss hurried off, Steele turned his attention to the Draconians. "Sub-Commander Zexlor, Warlord Krovnox, I need you to oversee the integration of the enhanced energy projector into New Draconium's defense grid. Focus on expanding its repair capabilities." The scaled faces of the Draconian leaders appeared on screen, nodding in unison. "It will be done, Admiral," Zexlor replied, his voice filled with persistence. Steele's gaze shifted to Captain Ethan Cole. "Captain, I have a crucial mission for you and the Prometheus. I need you to map the newly stabilized wormhole network. This could revolutionize our travel and response times across the sector." Cole saluted crisply. "We'll get started right away, sir." As the orders continued to flow, the command center buzzed with renewed energy. Steele watched as his team sprang into action, each member focused on their assigned tasks. Commander Volkov's face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral, the Vanguard is fully operational. What are your orders?" Steele leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Commander, I want you to lead a task force to secure the outer reaches of the sector. We've detected pockets of residual void collective energy. Contain them and transport them to our research facilities for study." Volkov nodded, his expression grim but determined. "Understood. Sir, we'll depart immediately." As the commander's image faded, Dr. Emil Kowalski's excited voice filled the command center. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough with the crystal-like structures on New Draconis. We can cultivate and shape them into highly efficient energy storage devices." Steele's eyebrows rose. "Excellent work, Doctor. Begin production of prototypes immediately. We'll need them for the sector's reconstruction efforts." The Admiral's attention shifted to Ambassador Richard Griffin, who was hunched over a console, his face bathed in the glow of rapidly scrolling data. "Ambassador, how's the decoding of the precursor data coming along?" Griffin looked up, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's incredible, Admiral. We've only scratched the surface, but we've already found references to other precursor installations throughout the galaxy. The potential for new discoveries is immense. Steele nodded, his mind racing with the implications. Keep at it, Ambassador. That information could be crucial for our future operations. As the command center continued to buzz with activity, Grand Designer Zilvax's hologram materialized. Admiral Steele, the recalibration of the Operation Lifeline wormhole network is complete. We now have near-instantaneous travel and communication capabilities with our allies across the galaxy. Steele allowed himself a small smile. Excellent work, Grand Designer. This will significantly strengthen our strategic position. The Admiral stood tall, surveying the command center. The magnitude of the changes they were implementing was not lost on him. He tapped his comm unit, opening a channel to all Allied forces in the sector. Attention all personnel. Steele's voice rang out across the Draconis sector. In light of recent events and the rapid technological advancements we're experiencing, I'm establishing the Draconis Sector Technology Integration Council, or DSDIC. This governing body will oversee the responsible development and deployment of our newly acquired technologies. He paused, letting the information sink in. Our first priority is the implementation of a sector-wide defense grid. We'll be utilizing the adaptive shielding technology developed from the Energy Collection Array, combined with enhanced energy weapons derived from precursor tech. As Steele continued to outline the plans for Operation Phoenix, the Draconis sector hummed with activity. Ships darted between newly stabilized wormholes, carrying personnel and resources to key locations. On Hope's Landing, the central research facility quickly took shape, its architecture a blend of human ingenuity and alien technology. In orbit around New Draconium, the enhanced energy projector pulsed with power, its beams sweeping across damaged infrastructure and leaving repaired structures in its wake. Smaller, mobile projectors were deployed to other worlds, accelerating the rebuilding efforts across the sector. Aboard the HSS Prometheus, Captain Cole and his crew charted the new wormhole network, marveling at the efficiency and predictability of the once chaotic subspace distortions. Their findings were immediately transmitted back to Allied Command, allowing for the rapid establishment of new trade routes and patrol patterns. As Operation Phoenix unfolded, the Draconis sector underwent a transformation unlike anything seen before in the galaxy. The integration of advanced technologies, combined with the coordinated efforts of the allied species, gave rise to a technological renaissance that would reshape the balance of power in the known universe. Yet even as progress marched forward at an unprecedented pace, Admiral Steele couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. The rapid advancements brought with them new challenges and potential threats. As reports of increased diplomatic tensions and covert infiltration attempts reached his ears, Steele knew that the true test of their newfound capabilities was yet to come. Calmly, as the Admiral contemplated the challenges ahead, an urgent transmission cut through his thoughts. Admiral Steele. Chen's voice was tense. We're receiving multiple reports of unidentified vessels amassing at the edge of the sector. Steele's eyes narrowed. Put it on screen. The main display flickered to life, showing a swarm of ships just beyond the sector's boundary. Their designs were unfamiliar, a hodgepodge of alien technologies that didn't match any known allied species. Sir, Chen continued, intelligence suggests these ships belong to a newly formed coalition of non-allied species. They're calling themselves the Galactic Concordat. Steele's teeth gritted. It seems our rapid advancements haven't gone unnoticed. The Concordat likely views us as a threat. He turned to address the command center. We need to accelerate our defensive measures. Contact the DSDIC immediately. Within hours, the Draconis Sector Technology Integration Council convened an emergency session. Steele laid out the situation, his voice grave. The Galactic Concordat poses a significant threat to our security. We need to bolster our defenses and fast. Dr. Voss leaned forward, his eyes bright with an idea. Admiral, what if we repurpose some of the precursor technology from the space station? We could create a network of advanced sensor outposts along the sector's borders. Steele nodded, a plan forming in his mind. Make it happen, Doctor. And Captain Cole? Cole straightened in his seat. Yes, sir. I want the Prometheus overseeing the deployment of these outposts. Your experience with the new wormhole network will be crucial for optimal placement. Understood, Admiral, Cole replied, already mentally preparing for the mission. As the meeting concluded, Steele felt a mix of anticipation and unease. The sector was changing rapidly, and now they faced a new external threat. Days later, the HSS Prometheus glided through space, approaching the site for the latest sensor outpost. Captain Cole stood on the bridge, watching as his crew worked efficiently to deploy the advanced precursor-derived technology. Captain, his science officer called out, I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature in the nearby asteroid field. Cole's interest piqued. Can you pinpoint the source? Yes. Sir, it appears to be coming from one of the larger asteroids. Cole made a quick decision. Helm, take us in for a closer look. As the Prometheus maneuvered through the asteroid field, the source of the energy signature came into view. What they had initially thought was a simple asteroid was revealed to be a camouflaged structure of unmistakably precursor origin. By the stars, Cole breathed. It's some kind of facility. Inform Admiral Steele immediately. Back on Hope's Landing, Steele received the news with a mix of excitement and wariness. He immediately dispatched Dr. Voss and a research team to investigate the discovery. Upon arrival, Voss and his team found themselves in awe of the hidden precursor facility. It was a massive manufacturing plant, filled with dormant robotic workers and assembly lines that stretched as far as the eye could see. This is incredible, Voss muttered, his fingers dancing over a control panel. With a soft hum, the facility began to awaken, systems coming online one by one. As Voss's team worked to unlock the secrets of the precursor facility, activity on New Draconium reached a fever pitch. Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox stood before the newly integrated energy projector, preparing for a final test of its defensive capabilities. Initiating test sequence, Zexlor announced, his scaled fingers moving across the control interface. The projector hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo. Suddenly, an unexpected surge pulsed through the system. A shimmering field materialized around the projector, distorting the very fabric of space-time. Krovnox's eyes widened in surprise. By the Ancient Ones, what is this? Within the field, they watched in amazement as a small test object aged rapidly, experiencing hours in mere seconds. A time dilation field, Zexlor breathed, his mind racing with the possibilities. We must inform Admiral Steele at once. The news of the time dilation technology spread quickly through the Alliance. Steele, recognizing its potential, ordered its immediate application to key facilities across the sector. As these developments unfolded, Commander Volkov patrolled the sector's edge aboard the HDS Vanguard. The ship's enhanced sensors suddenly blared an alert. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we've detected a small vessel attempting to penetrate our sensor network. Volkov's eyes narrowed. Concordat scouts. Intercept and disable. Let's see what our new systems can do. The Vanguard surged forward, its adaptive shielding shimmering as it closed in on the intruder. The enemy vessel, caught off guard by the Vanguard's advanced capabilities, was quickly overwhelmed and captured. As Volkov's team secured the Concordat ship and its crew, valuable intelligence began to pour in. The true extent of the Concordat's plans and capabilities started to come into focus. Back on Hope's Landing, Admiral Steele stood in the command center, absorbing the flood of information from all fronts. The discovery of the precursor facility, the time dilation technology, the captured Concordat ship. Each development brought new opportunities and new challenges. As he processed the implications, Steele's comm unit chimed. It was Ambassador Griffin, his voice tense with excitement. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately. We've found something in the precursor data that could change everything." Steele's pulse quickened. As he prepared to receive Griffin's report, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The next moves they made would shape not just the future of the Draconis sector, but potentially the entire galaxy. Admiral Steele's mind raced with the implications of Griffin's discovery, but before he could delve deeper, the command center erupted with activity. "Admiral," Chen's voice cut through the commotion, "multiple Concordat vessels have breached our outer sensor network. They're advancing rapidly towards the sector's core systems." Steele's eyebrows furrowed. The time for deliberation was over. "Initiate Operation Argus," he commanded, his voice resonating with authority. "Activate the sector-wide defense grid immediately." Across the Draconis sector, thousands of adaptive shielding platforms hummed to life. The crystal networks developed on New Draconis pulsed with energy, creating an intricate web of protective barriers. The once vulnerable borders of the sector transformed into an impenetrable fortress of shimmering energy fields. As the defense grid stabilized, Steele opened a secure channel to Grand Designer Zilvax. "Grand Designer, commence the wormhole network reconfiguration. Use the time dilation technology to accelerate construction. We need to expand our reach beyond the sector." Zilvax's multifaceted eyes gleamed with commitment. "Understood, Admiral. Initiating reconfiguration now." In the depths of space, existing wormhole nodes pulsed with newfound energy. Time seemed to twist and bend around them as the dilation technology took effect. New nodes materialized at an astonishing rate, their formation accelerated by months or even years. Steele turned his attention to Dr. Xander Voss, who had just arrived from the precursor manufacturing facility. "Doctor, what's the status of the autonomous defense drones?" Voss's eyes lit up with excitement. "The first wave is ready for deployment, Admiral. These drones are unlike anything we've ever created. They're equipped with adaptive AI derived from precursor tech, capable of self-replication and evolving tactics on the fly." "Excellent," Steele nodded. "Deploy them immediately to reinforce our borders and gather intel on Concordat fleet movements." As the drones swarmed out of the facility, Steele contacted Captain Ethan Cole aboard the newly christened HDS Prometheus II. "Captain, I have a critical mission for you. Take your task force beyond our borders and activate the dormant precursor defense systems. Use the expanded wormhole network to move quickly between systems." Cole's voice crackled over the comm. "Understood, Admiral. We'll get those ancient defenses online and integrated into our network." On New Draconium, Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox stood before a massive industrial complex. The air shimmered with the effects of time dilation fields as ships and weapons materialized at an unprecedented rate. "The integration is complete," Zexlor reported to Steele. "Our production capacity has increased tenfold. The first batch of time-accelerated ships is ready to join Commander Volkov's fleet." Steele allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the next phase of his strategy. "Initiate Project Sunforge," he ordered, his voice low and determined. "It's time to show the Concordat the true extent of our power." Deep within the heart of the Draconis sector, a massive energy-focusing array began to take shape. Powered by the sector-wide crystal network and incorporating the most advanced precursor technology, the array slowly came online, its potential awe-inspiring. As Project Sunforge neared completion, long-range sensors lit up with activity. "Admiral," Jim reported, his voice tense, "we've detected a large Concordat fleet assembling just outside the sector. They appear to be preparing for a major offensive." Steele's eyes narrowed. It was time for decisive action. "Contact Captain Cole," he ordered. "Tell him to take the Prometheus II and lead a strike force against the Concordat's staging area. Use the newly activated precursor defenses to coordinate the attack." The HDS Prometheus II glided through a wormhole, emerging at the head of a formidable strike force. Captain Cole stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the unsuspecting Concordat fleet. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Cole commanded. "Activate adaptive shielding and ready advanced weaponry. Launch drone swarms on my mark." The strike force surged forward, catching the Concordat fleet completely off guard. The HDS Prometheus II led the charge, its advanced systems allowing it to dance between enemy vessels with unmatched agility. Concordat ships exploded in silent bursts of fire and debris as the Alliance's superior technology overwhelmed their defenses. Autonomous drones swarmed capital ships, their adaptive tactics confounding Concordat gunners. As the battle raged, Captain Cole received an urgent transmission from Admiral Steele. "Captain, we're charging Project Sunforge for its first test. Clear your forces from the target area immediately." Cole's eyes widened as he realized the implications. "All Alliance ships, fall back to designated coordinates now." He barked into the comm as the strike force retreated. A brilliant beam of concentrated stellar energy lanced out from the heart of the Draconis sector. It struck the center of the Concordat fleet, vaporizing dozens of ships in an instant and leaving the rest in disarray. The battle was over almost as quickly as it had begun. The Concordat fleet, or what remained of it, fled in panic, leaving behind a field of debris and a clear message. The human-led Alliance was now a force to be reckoned with. As news of the victory spread, Admiral Steele received word from Ambassador Griffin. "Sir, we're being inundated with requests for diplomatic talks from previously neutral species. They're impressed by our display of power and eager to align themselves with us." Steele nodded, his mind already racing with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. The Draconis sector had firmly established itself as a major galactic power, but he knew that this was just the beginning. New threats would emerge, and the Alliance would need to remain vigilant and continue pushing the boundaries of their newfound technologies. As he prepared to address the sector and share news of their victory, Steele couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the precursors had left behind, waiting to be discovered and unlocked. Utilized, the potential of their discoveries seemed limitless. But Steele knew that with great power came great responsibility. As the dust settled from their recent victory, Admiral Steele called for a summit of Allied leaders on Hope's Landing. The newly constructed chamber hummed with energy, its walls lined with pulsating Draconis prime crystals. Representatives from various species filled the room, their faces a mixture of awe and anticipation. Steele stood at the center, his voice carrying across the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads, united by our recent triumph. But we must remain vigilant. Our strength lies not just in our technology, but in our unity." As he spoke, a sudden commotion erupted among the technicians monitoring the long-range sensors. Chen's voice cut through the murmur. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the galactic core." Steele's eyes narrowed. "Put it on screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a pulsating mass of energy expanding from the galactic center. Commander Jack Harper's face appeared in a separate window, his expression grave. "Admiral, the Precursor Station's analysis confirms it. It's the Void Collective, but on a scale we've never seen before. This entity is consuming entire star systems as it advances." Steele's mind raced, processing the implications. Without hesitation, he issued a series of rapid-fire commands. "Activate Project Sunforge immediately. Captain Cole, take the Prometheus II and lead our defense fleet to the sector's edge. Dr. Voss, I need those new disruptor weapons deployed now." The chamber erupted into controlled chaos as leaders rushed to coordinate their forces. Outside, the massive structure of Project Sunforge became visible, its colossal array beginning to draw energy from nearby stars. The celestial bodies visibly dimmed as the device powered up. On New Draconium, Subcommander Zexlor and Warlord Krovnox oversaw a planet-wide evacuation. The enhanced wormhole network pulsed with activity as civilians were transported to safe havens throughout Allied space. Zexlor's scaled fingers danced across the control panel. Evacuation proceeding at 73% efficiency, Warlord. The remaining population is preparing for battle. Krovnox nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Let us hope it's enough. The Void Collective approaches faster than we anticipated. In the depths of space, Captain Ethan Cole stood on the bridge of the HDS Prometheus II, leading a fleet of advanced warships to their defensive positions. The void before them seemed to darken, stars blinking out one by one as the collective approached. All ships form up, Cole commanded. Activate adaptive shielding and prepare disruptor weapons. We are the first line of defense. We will not falter. As the fleet took its position, the Void Collective came into view. It was a writhing mass of dark energy, tentacles of void stuff reaching out to consume everything in its path. The sight sent a chill through even the most hardened veterans. Back on Hope's Landing, Admiral Steele watched as ancient precursor defense installations across the galaxy sprang to life. Their powerful weapons oriented towards the oncoming threat, adding another layer to humanity's desperate defense. The Void Collective struck first, releasing a massive energy discharge that threatened to overwhelm the sector's defenses. The adaptive shielding platforms, powered by the crystal networks, strained under the assault but held firm. Return fire. Cole's voice rang out across the comms. The human-led fleet engaged, their ships weaving through tentacles of dark energy. Disruptor weapons fired, their energy bolts tearing into the collective's form. Cole's eyes narrowed as he spotted a weakness. This is Captain Cole. I'm leading a strike team into the heart of the collective. We'll deploy Dr. Voss's devices directly into its core. The HDS Prometheus II engaged its advanced cloaking technology, disappearing from view as it plunged into the writhing mass of the Void Collective. Cole's heart raced as he navigated through the entity's internal structure, searching for its central nexus. Meanwhile, Admiral Steele gave the order. Activate Project Sunforge. Full power. The energy-focusing array fired, its beam of concentrated stellar energy cutting through the Void Collective like a scythe. The entity recoiled, its form destabilizing under the unprecedented assault. Inside the collective, Cole and his team reached the central nexus. Deploying disruptors now, he reported, his voice tense. The device is activated, beginning to unravel the entity's structure from within. The Void Collective's consciousness, sensing its impending doom, lashed out in a final, desperate attack. Its death throes threatened to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. Grand Designer Zilvax's voice crackled over the comms. Initiating emergency containment protocol. Reconfiguring wormhole network now. As the entity imploded, Captain Cole and his team made a narrow escape. The HDS Prometheus II burst from the collapsing collective, barely outrunning the shockwave of its destruction. The resulting release of energy was safely channeled through the wormhole network, dispersed harmlessly across the galaxy. As the last tendrils of the Void Collective dissipated, a stunned silence fell over the Allied forces. Admiral Steele stood on the observation deck of Hope's Landing, watching as the stars once again shone brightly in the sky. The threat of the Void Collective had been neutralized, but he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity and its allies had taken their first steps into a larger universe, one filled with both wonders and dangers beyond imagination. As celebrations erupted across Allied worlds, Steele turned his attention to the future. The power they now wielded was immense, and with it came great responsibility. He began to formulate plans for a galactic council, one that would guide their civilization and ensure the protection of all sentient life. The human-led alliance had proven itself as a force to be reckoned with, but Steele knew that their greatest challenges and opportunities still lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.